Chapter 959. For the Demon King Wentian, taking over Yang Dingtian's body was his first choice. However, Yang Dingtian already had 2 saint rank experts by his side. As long as 1 saint rank expert was by his side, the Temple of Annihilation would be helpless against Yang Dingtian. Therefore, Yongxi Wentian set up the first trap in the Skull Hall, making Yang Dingtian and Wushuang walk right into it. However, Yang Dingtian saw through it at the last moment and did not charge in. The Demon King Wentian asked everyone if they could capture Yang Dingtian. Under the influence of supernatural forces, the Sea Heart Queen suggested that if she saw the resurrection of the venomous Sand Queen, she might have a plan to capture Yang Dingtian. Finally, the news of evil ways came. Queen Poisa had been resurrected. Queen Hai Xan knew very well that she and Queen Poisa were only related to each other. Since Yang Dingtian had resurrected Queen Poisa, he had completely broken off his relationship with Hai Xan. Therefore, she suggested this plan to the Demon King Wentian. After Queen Poisa was resurrected, she would definitely save Viper Mo, Viper Z, and her previous confidants. However, these Serpent Men experts were all inside the pyramid of the Holy Land. The Queen Mermaid and Queen Poisa could not enter the energy barrier. Only Yang Dingtian's spatial technique could enter. However, he was the only one who could enter. Therefore, this was a fatal trap. After the Demon King Wentian heard Yang Dingtian's report, he immediately let Queen Devil Queen pass through the dark matter and enter the energy barrier's Hell Demon formation. He set up a trap and waited for Yang Dingtian to barge in. They had been waiting here for a few days. Today, Yang Dingtian finally came. As expected, he came. Of course, they did not need the Shura Vulture to capture Yang Dingtian this time. However, whether it was the Devil Queen or the Demon King Wentian, they clearly knew that the Vulture's heart was wandering. Therefore, they wanted to completely tear the Vulture and Yang Dingtian apart, cutting off Vulture's escape route. Therefore, they brought the Vulture. Moreover, the Vulture had a special characteristic, which was that she was very dependent on the strong. If she saw with her own eyes that Yang Dingtian was captured without the ability to fight back, he would look completely like a weakling. Then, her feelings for Yang Dingtian and her heart would be infinitely weakened. At this time, the Vulture's heart was completely in a mess. On one hand, she really hoped that Yang Dingtian would be captured. That's right, she had this thought, because she was really disgusted with the Demon King Wentian. When she thought of the Demon King Wentian resurrecting and becoming his woman, she wanted to vomit. Now the Demon King Wentian's shadow had left a deep impression on her. Therefore, if the Demon King Wentian possessed Yang Dingtian, she would become Yang Dingtian's woman again. Although she was deceiving herself, this result seemed good. On the other hand, she had always wanted to prove herself to Yang Dingtian and avenge herself. If she could save Yang Dingtian at the critical moment, it would be perfect. She would be able to deal a fatal blow to Yang Dingtian's heart. Yang Dingtian, look, you seem to be very amazing. I saved you at the critical moment. These 2 aspects satisfied a certain desire in her heart very much. She couldn't even tell which was stronger and which was weaker. Therefore, she had been in pain, struggling left and right. When the Queen Devil Queen asked her, she seemed to have been awakened, and then smiled sweetly at the Devil Queen. The Queen Devil Queen wasn't surprised by Shura Vulture's reaction. She felt that she understood Vulture very well. This was a greedy, selfish, self-centered woman. Perhaps she wanted to help Yang Dingtian at this time, but she definitely didn't have the courage. She definitely wouldn't do anything that would harm her own interests. Sorry, my spatial door can't allow creatures stronger than me to pass through, so I can only enter alone, Yang Dingtian said. Okay, you have to be careful. If there's anything wrong, come out immediately, Queen Poisa said. Then she turned her delicate body, her back facing Yang Dingtian. Her meaning was very clear. She wouldn't look at the process of Yang Dingtian using the greater spatial technique. The Queen Mermaid was very dissatisfied, but she still turned her body. Of course, this situation was a bit superfluous. Even if she watched it 10,000 times, it was impossible to learn the greater spatial technique. Even if she told someone the principle, they wouldn't be able to use it because it was really too complicated. Whether it was the darkness profound flame or the profound flame. They had to go through complicated modifications before they could create a spatial door. Young Dingtian began to use the darkness profound flame to carve out a black hole created by the darkness profound flame, isolating a space. Then, he began to strike the profound flame to create a spatial door. Queen Devil Queen, who was inside the energy barrier, held her breath as she watched young Dingtian use the greater spatial technique. This was the most mysterious technique in the world, and it was also the technique that the Demon King Wentian yearned for the most. Queen Devil Queen desperately wanted to see clearly, but she couldn't see anything. It even seemed that young Dingtian didn't do anything, especially since this energy barrier wasn't that transparent. Queen Devil Queen condensed her voice into Queen Hai Xen and Shura Vulture's ears, saying, "Get ready, young Dingtian is coming in. Capture him, and we'll have the entire primal chaos world." At this moment, Queen Hai Xen had already let go of everything. She was incomparably eager for young Dingtian to rush in and become her prisoner. This time, she would definitely use harsh and vicious words to greet young Dingtian. When he resurrected Poison Sha, he was already an enemy that would not rest until one of them was dead. Vulture's heart was still in a mess. In her mind, she was still fighting left and right. However, when young Dingtian used the greater spatial technique, she had no time to hesitate. She was no longer thinking about those two aspects in her mind. There was only one scene, and that was the scene of her and young Dingtian's wedding. The scene of her and young Dingtian's wedding night. The two of them blended together in the most intimate way, as if they had completely become one person. Suddenly Shura Vulture's heart palpitated. Then, she instinctively used her celestial spirit master talent. That's right, it was instinctively used. It didn't even go through her will. It was completely the instinct of her body and soul. She wanted to control the free energy particles outside the energy barrier to warn and prevent young Dingtian from entering. However, she failed. That was because this powerful energy shield shielded everything. Suddenly, Vulture was burning with anxiety. She thought of the next way, which was to control the lives of the people in the pyramid and make them collectively shout, "Don't come in." However, she failed again, because the people in the giant pyramid were all living people, not undead. She was completely at her wit's end, unless she directly shouted, "Don't come in" from inside. But in that case, she would be discovered by the Devil Queen. She would be finished. She would be dead. She was willing to save young Dingtian, but she was absolutely unwilling to sacrifice her life for it. At this moment, a beautiful space door was attached to the energy barrier. Suddenly, the Devil Queen inside was about to suffocate. This was the space door. This was the space door that the Demon King Wentian dreamed of. It was the key to ruling the entire chaotic world. Soon, young Dingtian would jump in. Soon, young Dingtian's body would completely belong to the Demon King Wentian. At this time, Shura Vulture's spiritual brain suddenly released a powerful soul-summoning energy. This spiritual energy directly passed through the space door and immediately controlled the free particles outside the energy barrier. These free particles didn't form any words. Instead, they drilled into young Dingtian's ears and hit his brain membrane. "Go, go!" The voice of Shura Vulture sounded in the depths of young Dingtian's brain. During the whole process, Vulture didn't say anything and didn't release any energy. This was the horror of a celestial spirit master. They directly used their spiritual brain to control everything. The Devil Queen could control any energy, sea of qi, and xian veins of the two people around her. But she couldn't control a person's brain. Speaking of which, a celestial spirit master's attack method was exactly the same as a sword soul. They were all controlled by consciousness. However, in terms of profoundness and mystery, it was even more heaven-defying than controlling a sword soul. The spiritual power directly passed through the space door, and then controlled countless particles to hit young Dingtian's eardrums, causing vibrations and making sounds. Moreover, it was the voice of Vulture himself. It was a divine skill, a divine skill. After young Dingtian heard it, his heart suddenly moved. The fruit he planted in Vulture's heart had indeed begun to sprout. However, his expression didn't change at all. He still pretended to jump through the space door. The moment he was about to jump in, young Dingtian suddenly said, "Sha Sha, do you think it's the same as the Skull Hall?" Queen Poisa trembled, thinking that if the Devil Queen was lying in ambush inside, the consequences would be fatal. Yes, it must be possible. Queen Poisa said, Yongshi Wentian might have set a trap in the Skull Hall, and the Devil Queen might have set a trap here to capture you. Yes, it must be like this, it must be like this. After Hai Xan sees that I've been resurrected, she will definitely be incomparably decisive. She will definitely capture you, and win the favor of the Demon King. Go. Then Queen Poisa held Yang Dingtian's hand and exclaimed loudly, Yang Dingtian, and the Mermaid Queen didn't say anything and directly retreated like lightning. Suddenly, the space door also completely disappeared. Queen Devil Queen inside saw that Yang Dingtian, who was already in her hands, ran away alive, and was incomparably furious. Queen Hai Xan was even more incomparably disappointed and said coldly, Yang Dingtian, you forced me into this dead end, so don't blame me for being ruthless. Suddenly, Queen Devil Queen jumped to the top of the pyramid, controlled the entire Hell Demon array, and launched an incomparably powerful and fatal attack towards Yang Dingtian and the others. At the same time, the entrance to the Holy Land suddenly closed. Ayo! Queen Hai Xan suddenly transformed into a huge sea snake. In an instant, the entire huge pyramid, made up of tens of millions of lives, became her body. In an instant, she became incomparably huge, like a huge prehistoric demon, a monster that spanned hundreds of miles. Yang Dingtian, since you're here, it won't be so easy for you to leave. Within the entire Holy Land, there was an incomparably resolute laughter. Chapter 960. Clap, 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 clap. Under Queen Hai Xan's control, an earth-shattering sword ray slashed down from the sky above the Holy Land. Each ray was close to the power of a saint level. The Mermaid Queen and Queen Poisa quickly rushed in front of Yang Dingtian and blocked the sword ray for him. Uft! The sword ray slashed down on the Mermaid Queen's scimitar. Suddenly, her delicate body trembled and her face turned pale. Immediately after, another terrifying sword ray slashed down fiercely. Queen Poisa desperately blocked it. Yang Dingtian was startled as he immediately flew over and blocked the shocking sword light together with venomous Sha. Pfft! Queen Poisa cried out, and then spat out a mouthful of blood. Yang Dingtian's body flew a few hundred meters away, blood spurting out of his mouth. Queen Hai Xan had completely transformed into a snake, coiled on the huge pyramid, and swayed her huge body. The pyramid made up of life was also swaying, looking extremely strange and terrifying. 6 arms appeared on Queen Hai Xan's snake body. Her face no longer had any human features, as if it had completely turned into the face of a venomous snake. The 6 arms held all kinds of treasured swords and waved them wildly. Suddenly, countless sword rays slashed down from the sky. Each ray was about to smash Poisa and Yang Dingtian into pieces. Hai Xan, spare Yang Dingtian's life, don't kill him. Queen Devil Queen shouted in horror. I'm sorry, Devil Queen. I can only do my best, but I can't guarantee anything. Queen Hai Xan said. And this is my plane, my territory. Anyone who is here will have to obey my orders. It wasn't easy for Yang Dingtian and the others to break into my territory, so I can't let them leave alive. Otherwise, the one who dies will be mine. At this time, Hai Xan's voice had become completely hoarse, like a venomous snake talking. That's right, this holy land was her territory, her plane, and she controlled the pyramid made up of tens of millions of lives. Even a saint-level powerhouse had to lie low here. Clap, 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 clap. Yang Dingtian and the other 2 frantically dodged Queen Hai Xan's shocking sword rays and energy attacks. Using his fastest speed, he flashed and flew through the void. Queen Hai Xan controlled her body. High Queen Devil Queen's Queen Hai Xan and Queen Hai Xan. Queen Hai Xan's attention, and Queen Hai Xan and the others. Queen Hai Xan's Queen Devil Queen was shocked. In the Skirich imperial capital, Queen Hai Xan seemed to be the least outstanding one. Everyone instinctively looked down on her. Who would have thought that she would be so powerful in her own plane? She chased a saint level and 2 half-saint level powerhouses, to the point where they couldn't fight back at all. This was Queen Hyexian's plane. She not only controlled the entire pyramid, but also the power of the entire energy formation. Clap, 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 clap. The speed of the 3 still couldn't compare to the energy attacks that appeared out of nowhere. In just a short moment, Yang Dingtian and the other 2 had already suffered dozens of attacks. Queen Mermaid Violets took the most damage. Finally, when an incomparably terrifying green ray of light shot down fiercely from above, Queen Mermaid spat out a mouthful of blood and instantly became weak. Once Queen Mermaid fell, Queen Poisa and Yang Dingtian wouldn't be able to withstand these shocking attacks. Clap, 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 clap. Yang Dingtian hugged the 2 of them and dodged as fast as he could. But, swoosh, suddenly, an energy wall tens of thousands of meters tall came crashing down and hit the 3 of them. Queen Mermaid used all her energy to block this shocking attack. Then she spat out another mouthful of blood. Ha 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 ha. Queen Hyexian laughed like a monster. Saint-level powerhouses, how enviable. But this is my territory. The energy of tens of millions of people, the energy of the entire Dongli grassland, is all under my control. Even saint-level powerhouses can only kneel in front of me. Let's see how many times you can block. Clap, 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 clap. Queen Hyexian controlled the entire energy formation. Energy walls came crashing down one after another. Queen Mermaid resisted again and again. In just a short moment, she was hit hundreds of times. PFFF. Queen Mermaid spat out the last mouthful of blue blood and fainted. Before she fainted, Queen Mermaid complained to Yang Dingtian. You should have killed her long ago. Otherwise, how would we be in this mess today? Kill Hyexian? Yang Dingtian never had the chance. But if he had the chance in the future, he definitely wouldn't let it go. Without Queen Mermaid's protection, Queen Poisa and Yang Dingtian instantly became weak. Ha 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 ha. Queen Hyexian laughed sinisterly. Poisa, my good sister, you actually came back to life. Why did you have to do this? Why did you have to come back to life? After you came back to life, Yang Dingtian, and I completely broke off. You left me with no other choice. If I don't kill him today, he will definitely kill me in the future. Yang Dingtian didn't care about what Queen Hyexian said. He just took the 2 women and frantically retreated. Swoosh. Yang Dingtian controlled the soul sword and crazily dug the void dome. He tried to dig a hole and then flash out. The soul sword that was close to the Emperor Grade dug quickly. In the blink of an eye, it dug dozens of meters. Pa! A huge burst of energy shot out from the dome and sent the soul sword flying a few hundred meters away. Suddenly, the soul sword stopped digging. Pa! Another huge energy slammed down. PFFF. Queen Poisa, who was hit, was like a delicate flower that was struck by lightning. She directly vomited blood and fainted. In the end, only Yang Dingtian was left. He hugged Poisa and the mermaid, whose fate was unknown. Queen Hyexian's viper face sneered and said, Yang Dingtian, now you know how tolerant I was to you? You shouldn't have resurrected the venomous queen. Only death awaits you if you do that. Of course, if you want me to change my mind, it's very simple. You just have to kill my sister Poisa again. Idiot. Yang Dingtian said coldly. Ugly monster. As soon as these words came out, Queen Hyexian's face suddenly distorted. She shouted sternly, Yang Dingtian, you're courting death. Then an energy wall was about to smash down. Hyexian, leave Yang Dingtian alive. Queen Hyexian said. His body is still useful to the Demon King. Queen Hyexian laughed sinisterly and said, Don't worry, I will leave him alive. However, I can't guarantee that it will be intact. Pa! Then, another energy wall of tens of thousands of meters suddenly smashed down on Yang Dingtian. When this energy wall smashed down, there was only one result for Yang Dingtian. He instantly fainted, and all his Xian veins were instantly torn apart. Hyexian had already calculated. She was very clear about Yang Dingtian's 9 Yang Xian veins and his endurance. When this attack hit, there would definitely be no escape. Boom! This shocking energy suddenly smashed down on Yang Dingtian's head. However, he was completely safe and sound. Queen Hai Xian was astonished. She completely did not understand why. Then, she suddenly released another shocking attack and smashed down on Yang Dingtian. This time, it had already exceeded the 18th level of energy. It was already enough to bring fatal danger to Yang Dingtian. However, Yang Dingtian was still safe and sound. Impossible, this is impossible, Queen Hai Xian said in shock. Then, she suddenly increased the energy to saint level, a total of 20 levels. According to normal circumstances, if Yang Dingtian was hit by 20 levels of energy, there would only be one result. That was to instantly turn into ashes and shatter into pieces. After the incomparably shocking energy smashed down, Yang Dingtian was still safe and sound. Why? Because the sky above Yang Dingtian had already been completely enveloped by a dark Xian flame vortex. Just now, the three of them had completely given up on dodging. The Mermaid Queen took on the entire Hell's demonic array's attack again and again. However, Yang Dingtian did not move at all. It was because Yang Dingtian wanted to create the dark vortex. This required time. Finally, at the last moment, Yang Dingtian's dark vortex was formed. As for whether the dark vortex could block this shocking attack, Yang Dingtian did not know at all, because he had never tried before. However, at such a critical moment, Yang Dingtian could only try this method. The spiritual power of the Naga royalty in the Soul Sword did not have the slightest intention of saving them. Therefore, Yang Dingtian could only try using the dark vortex. In the end, he succeeded. The dark vortex could devour all kinds of energy. This was something that Yang Dingtian knew. Therefore, as long as the dark vortex was created, it would devour all the surrounding energy. However, Yang Dingtian was worried that the energy that the dark vortex could devour would not exceed Yang Dingtian's own cultivation. This was because the space door that he created would not be able to pass through creatures that were stronger than him. Fortunately, what Yang Dingtian was worried about did not happen. Just like the nuclear fusion on Earth, he knew that it could completely solve Earth's energy problem. However, there was no container that could contain nuclear fusion. In the end, the direction that he thought of was to use a rotating magnetic array to envelop nuclear fusion. A mere rotating magnetic force could completely envelop the incomparably powerful nuclear fusion. Then, the dark vortex formed by Yang Dingtian's dark mystical flame, which was the limit of his cultivation, could contain tens, hundreds, or even more energy. Therefore, Yang Dingtian blocked Queen Hai Xian's shocking attacks again and again. The powerful black hole easily devoured all the energy. Upon seeing this scene, the infernal queen dead concubine was completely dumbfounded. Yang Dingtian was actually so terrifying. The queen devil queen clearly knew that even she might not be able to block the attack energy that Queen Hai Xian controlled from the Hell demonic array. However, Yang Dingtian could easily block it. How shocking was this? Immediately after, the queen devil queen woke up and said, Hai Xian, immediately open the energy shield. The mermaid queen and Poisa have already fainted. Now there's only Yang Dingtian. I can easily rush up and capture him. Although Queen Hai Xian was extremely shocked and unwilling, the Queen Devil Queen was currently the best solution. At this time, the Shira vulture was also shocked by Yang Dingtian. Although it was worried, it was also filled with infinite hope for him. Queen Hai Xian suddenly jumped down from the pyramid. She wanted to open the energy shield and rush up to capture Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian sneered and said, You want to capture me? Dream on. He suddenly smashed the dark vortex towards the dome of the sacred land. Then he suddenly reversed the dark vortex. In an instant, all the energy that was devoured was suddenly released. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, there was a burst of earth-shattering explosions. The dome of the entire sacred land was suddenly blasted into a huge hole hundreds of meters deep. Yang Dingtian suddenly flashed into this huge hole. In the blink of an eye, only a thin layer of the dome was left. In an instant, he carried Poisa and the mermaid queen and disappeared without a trace. Hai Xian, unless you keep hiding in this hell's demonic array, if you meet me again, it will be your death. Yang Dingtian sneered and said, I still have to. You allowed me to invent a near-invincible technique in a desperate situation. How about my black hole attack? Bang! Yang Dingtian carried Poisa and the mermaid and rushed out of the lake. Then, without any delay, he flew towards the emergency continental sea area. This time, Yang Dingtian was unable to rescue Viper Mo and Viper Z. However, Yang Dingtian still had an incomparably huge harvest. The black hole attack should be the most frightening attack in this world. With this, even if he faced a saint-level expert, Yang Dingtian was not without the power to fight. Next, Yang Dingtian had to hurry up, including really having a child with Wu Yu. This way, Nera would come to his side, and the Council of Light would have another powerful saint-level expert. Queen Devil Queen saw Yang Dingtian's disappearing figure and muttered to herself, Black hole attack, extremely heaven-defying. There's no chance to catch Yang Dingtian. The Demon King will be resurrected immediately. As soon as these words came out, it was as if the surrounding air suddenly darkened. Chapter 961. Wu Yu understood that Yang Dingtian had always been a sunny and good boy. Of course, he might have risen to the level of a good man now, but generally speaking, a good man would find it difficult to attract the affection of certain girls. Although Yang Dingtian was an exception in this regard, Wu Yu imagined herself when she was young. If she wanted to have a risky relationship with a boy, she would definitely not look for someone like Yang Dingtian. She would definitely look for a bad boy. Therefore, in order to coax Neru to leave Mount Buzhou, Yang Dingtian actually said that he wanted to have a child with Wu Yu and let her take care of her grandson. This really didn't seem like something Yang Dingtian would do. This kind of Yang Dingtian was really a little bad. Wu Yu looked into Yang Dingtian's eyes and asked, Are you doing this to get Neru to help you, or to let her escape from the sea of suffering? Yang Dingtian, both. Wu Yu, what's the proportion of each? Yang Dingtian thought for a moment and shook his head. I don't know, because I didn't have this idea in the beginning. But there's another person in the High Priest Association who can be considered an alternative leader. She's someone who cares a lot about your mother and is very good to me. She asked me to persuade Neru to stop her self-torture. So, I thought that if Madame Neru leaves Mount Buzhou, it would be very beneficial for me. Wu Yu nodded. I understand. Then Wu Yu asked, Do you think she will leave? Yang Dingtian thought for a moment and said, If you really have a child, she will definitely leave. She needs someone to rely on. She didn't take care of you back then, so she must want to make up for it now. Hey, is there anyone who scolds people like that? Wu Yu said, What do you mean she didn't take care of me? What did I do? Yang Dingtian actually wanted to say that Wu Yu was indeed like a child who lacked maternal and paternal love when he was young. Since he said it out loud, Yang Dingtian might as well be audacious to the extreme and said, Sect Master Wu Yu, what do you think of my suggestion? Give birth to a child for you? No. Yang Dingtian, have a child with me. Wu Yu's face flushed red for the first time. Then he sank into deep thought. Then she said, Although I ran out to get vaccinated, I never thought of having a child. Would you believe me? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I believe you because your childhood was not happy. And as a bystander, once you give birth to the child, you can no longer stay out of it. Of course, most importantly, you don't have the confidence to be a good mother. Wu Yu suddenly felt short of breath. Yang Dingtian was right, but she didn't seem to have the confidence to be a good mother. Although her heart was incomparably strong, what happened to her parents when she was young still left a deep shadow in her heart. Then, Wu Yu fell into deep thought again, seriously considering Yang Dingtian's suggestion. Then she asked again, You also know what the child you and I will have will be like? Yang Dingtian. You'll know when you look at Yang Yi. Wu Yu said again, What kind of people do you want your children to be in the future? You have to know that they are the descendants of demigods. When you die, or when you can't control them, they might very well bring about terrible consequences to this world. Yang Dingtian. Of course, in my heart, I hope that my children will have a simple and happy future. But I know that this should be very difficult. So I don't know what kind of people my children will become in the future. But don't forget that I already have 2 such children. Yang Dingtian's words sounded very irresponsible, but in fact, it was very true. Wu Yu looked at Yang Dingtian for a long time and said, "Actually, every woman has a strong maternal instinct. At first, I didn't feel it, but after you suddenly unearthed it, it seems that this impulse has become very strong. Especially when you said that Neru would take care of my children. That scene instantly entered my mind, and that feeling of happiness actually made it difficult for me to breathe. So, Yang Dingtian, you agree, right?" Wu Yu said, "Yes, this is a risk for me. I want to give it a try, after the calamity of the World Extermination War. I don't want my children to leave this world before they come into this world." Yang Dingtian's face twitched, not because of Wu Yu's words, but because the scene she described was too shocking. Wu Yu said, "Once I get pregnant and give birth, I will no longer be a bystander. Perhaps my identity will be no different from your cloud sky cities Wu Maji or Yaorao. I am very opposed to this." Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and said, "That's right. After the calamity of the World Extermination War, let's give birth." "Did you successfully get the demon core of the Naga royalty?" Wu Yu asked. Yang Dingtian nodded, then took out the golden demon core that belonged to Wu Yu for a long time. Actually, Yang Dingtian was very curious about one thing. Most of the Naga appeared in human form, so they should have a sea of qi. How could there be a demon core? Only demonic beasts had demon cores. Thus, Yang Dingtian asked this question. Wu Yu smiled and said, "Then ask Violets if she has a demon core and a sea of qi." Violets nodded and said, "Not only do I have a sea of qi, but I also have a demon core." Yang Dingtian was very surprised. There was actually such a situation. Violet said, "Whether it is the Sea Serpent clan or the Mermaid clan, as long as they can completely transform into human form, they will have a sea of qi and a sea of qi. At the same time, we will have a sea of qi and a demon core. Therefore, at the same cultivation level, we will have double the energy. Of course, when we are seriously injured, we can quickly recover, because we have another demon core in addition to the sea of qi. In fact, it is equivalent to having an extra life." Yang Dingtian suddenly looked at Queen Poisa and the Mermaid Queen in surprise. These 2 peerless beauties actually had demon cores? Then, he pointed the Naga royalty demon core at the sunlight. Even under the sunlight, the demon core didn't change much. It was still a golden demon core, but it seemed to contain countless stars. It was as if the entire demon core was a universe. It seemed incomparably bright and mysterious. Yang Dingtian carefully sensed the inside of the demon core. Suddenly, whether it was divine sense or Xianqi energy, there was no reaction at all, as if they had entered the vast sea or the universe of stars. There should be incomparably vigorous energy inside, but there was no communication or sensing with Yang Dingtian. Wu Yu said, "What are you going to do next? Are you going to directly inlay the Naga royalty demon core on the soul sword?" Yang Dingtian nodded. Wu Yu said, "If you do this, you might lose this soul sword." Wu Yu's words weren't alarmist words. Originally, the mental power of the Naga royalty couldn't come out of the demon core. It was equivalent to having a sea of qi and spirit, but it didn't have a body or xian veins, so it couldn't attack or act on its own. But now Yang Dingtian had created the most powerful body for it. That's right. A body close to an emperor-grade soul sword surpassed anyone in this world, including any demon beast. And the xian vein essence that Yang Dingtian had implanted was a few thousand li wide. It could accommodate the energy transmission of the 10,000 li yin-yang mirror. For a living body, this was infinitely large. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's soul sword was an extremely heaven-defying body. Once the mental power of the Naga royalty had such a body, would it be able to become independent and break away from Yang Dingtian? It was something that he didn't know at all. But Yang Dingtian had already prepared himself mentally. He was willing to take the risk. Then, she said to Wu Yu and the others, "Next, I need to pull out tens of thousands of xian vein essence from the Millennium Owl's demon core and implant it into the Naga royalty's demon core. This is an extremely complicated and tedious job. Please protect me. Young Dingtian remembered the last time he implanted the Xian vein essence into the soul sword. That feeling made him shudder. It was too complicated and too tiring. Wuyi said, "You don't need to transplant it directly." Chapter 962. Wuyi was right. Although the Naga royalty's demon core was extremely tough, when the million spirit demon fire's temperature rose to a certain level, it began to melt gradually. Of course, this melting did not damage the Naga royalty's demon core at all. Inside, it was still as bright as a starry sky, filled with endless energy. Yang Dingtian summoned a million spirit demon fire with his other hand, and began to burn the tail of the Emperor-grade soul sword. Soon the tail of the sword, which was made up of 10,000-year-old bloody black gold, began to melt, revealing the Millennium Owl's demon core. This was actually a difference in temperature. At this temperature, the 10,000-year-old bloody black gold would melt, but the Millennium Owl's demon core would not be destroyed. The melted tail of the sword fell bit by bit. Yang Dingtian wrapped it with his celestial qi to prevent it from leaving the sword body. When the Millennium Owl's demon core was completely exposed, Yang Dingtian could even see countless celestial qi essences flowing with countless rays of light. Yang Dingtian controlled the melted Naga royalty's demon core and wrapped it around the Millennium Owl's demon core. At this time, the Naga royalty's demon core had completely turned into liquid. In the blink of an eye, it had completely wrapped around the Millennium Owl's demon core. Yang Dingtian continued to increase the temperature of the million spirit demon fire and continued to burn. Suddenly, the temperature of the Naga royalty's demon core's liquid temperature rose higher and higher. In the end, it completely turned into golden water, but there was absolutely no damage. This was not very reasonable, because any substance would be burned. The reason why the Naga royalty's demon core was not burned was that it was not just a substance, but a body of energy. However, the Millennium Owl's demon core was obviously unable to withstand such a high temperature. It instantly exploded and turned into ashes. A lot of the energy in the Millennium Owl's demon core had been consumed, but there was still a lot left. When the demon core was destroyed, the energy inside would explode. If it was outside, it would be equivalent to a giant missile, or even more terrifying. However, at this moment, the entire Millennium Owl's demon nucleus was enveloped by the liquid of the Naga royalty demon nucleus. Therefore, what should have been an earth-shattering explosion turned into a storm in a teacup. Yang Dingtian only felt the soul sword tremble slightly, and then the demon core flashed with white light. In an instant, the golden demon core of the Naga clan turned into a transparent white. Of course, the explosion disappeared after a mere instant. The remaining energy of the Millennium Owl's demonic core was nothing in front of the Naga royalty demonic core. It was easily devoured without a trace. The demonic core of the Millennium Owl had also disappeared without a trace. Throughout the entire process, the soul swords were not affected in the slightest. Everyone knew that the profound vein essence could not be separated from the energy for too long, not even half a second. However, the replacement of the demon core this time was a seamless connection. Yang Dingtian stopped the heating of the mystic fire. The Naga royalty demon core quickly returned to its original state and started to shrink. Finally, it was restored to its original state. Finally, Yang Dingtian used the melted 10,000 years old bloody black gold to completely envelop the Naga royalty demon core. The entire Emperor-grade soul sword was restored to its original state and did not look any different from before. Then, Yang Dingtian carefully held the treasured sword and started to use his divine sense to communicate with the soul sword. Yang Dingtian easily sensed the sword's soul echo. He immediately responded with babbling. He had grown up a little, but that was all. From a newborn baby, he had become a baby of a few months old. He could already try to communicate with Yang Dingtian, but he could not speak at all and could not express himself. However, this was not the result that Yang Dingtian wanted. Yang Dingtian wanted to establish a connection with the Naga royalty's divine sense. Yang Dingtian tried to sense the sword's soul again and again, but every time, only Ah Cho would respond excitedly. The Naga royalty's divine sense still did not sense any trace of it. It was as if the replacement of the Naga royalty demon core did not make any difference to it. Yang Dingtian was not willing to give up. He immediately used his divine sense to control the soul sword and flew. Whoosh! In an instant, that speed had completely shocked Yang Dingtian. It was too fast. It was completely a golden light. Yang Dingtian estimated that it was at least 10 times the speed of sound. Its speed was over 5,000 meters per second. Even with Yang Dingtian's eyes, he could not see it clearly at all. It was completely like a bolt of lightning. Moreover, when flying, Yang Dingtian felt that the soul sword's energy seemed to be endless. Yang Dingtian controlled the soul sword to fly continuously. In just 1 minute, it had already flown a few hundred miles. 2 to 3 minutes later, it had already flown more than 1,000 miles. And the most terrifying thing was that even though it was more than 1,000 miles away, Yang Dingtian could still easily control the soul sword. In other words, Yang Dingtian could now take the head of the soul sword from 1,000 miles away. Yang Dingtian quickly summoned the soul sword back and held it in his hand. He then spoke to Wu Chui. I have a piece of bad news. Even though I have exchanged the demon core of the Naga royal race, the demon core of the Naga royal race is still not enough. Even though I have changed the Naga royalty's divine sense, the Naga royalty's divine sense still did not have any connection with me. It was as if it completely disdained to pay attention to me. Wu Yu looked at Yang Dingtian. What is your fastest flying speed? Yang Dingtian. 5 to 6,000 miles in 2 hours. Wu Yu said, if I don't care about the consumption of Xian Qi, I can fly more than 10,000 miles in 2 hours. Did you see the speed of your soul sword just now? Yang Dingtian nodded. If I don't consider the distance, it can fly more than 70,000 miles in 2 hours, maybe even 100,000 miles. When these words came out, everyone was speechless. This flying speed was more than 10 times that of a Saint Realm expert. Wu Yu almost held his breath. Can you imagine how much higher the cultivation of this Naga royalty's demon core is than a Saint Realm expert? Yang Dingtian nodded vigorously. There was no doubt that the owner of this demon core, the Naga royalty's cultivation, was far beyond a Saint Realm expert. Even a single demon core of his was several times more valuable than that of a Saint-level expert. Yang Dingtian clearly felt the shock in his heart. Then he said, Since this Naga royalty's demon core is so powerful, why didn't you make it into a soul sword before? Wu Yu glanced at Yang Dingtian. Do you think there are so many emperor-rank soul swords? Do you think anyone can collect Xian vein essence that is more than 1,000 miles long? I can guarantee that, other than your soul sword, any soul sword in the world that contains this Naga royalty's demon core will only have one result. And that is, the entire soul sword will turn into ashes in an instant. Yang Dingtian nodded in agreement. In fact, Yang Dingtian had also sensed that his soul sword, which was close to the emperor grade, was trembling when it was flying at extreme speed. In other words, even an emperor-rank soul sword would not be able to withstand the power of the Naga royalty's demon core. Only an emperor-rank soul sword would be able to contain this Naga royalty's demon core. Wu Yu continued. Moreover, there is another reason. Even if someone else has an emperor-rank soul sword, with this Naga royalty's demon core, it is absolutely impossible to control this soul sword. If you don't believe me, let me see your soul sword. Yang Dingtian carefully handed it over. Wu Yu gently grasped it, then injected a bit of Xian Qi. Boom! Suddenly, the soul sword shook violently and turned into a stream of light, directly flying out. Wu Yu opened her small mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Are you okay? Yang Dingtian hurried forward and gently stroked her chest. What a tyrannical power. Wu Yu wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and smiled at Yang Dingtian. Now you know how powerful it is. In this world, no one can take away your soul sword. Yang Dingtian looked down. He didn't know when this soul sword was in his hand, but it actually flew back to Yang Dingtian's hand by itself. Wu Yu said, Although the Naga royalty's spirit did not respond to you, it tacitly acknowledges that you control this demon core's power. Otherwise, it can easily devour you and shatter your bones. Yang Dingtian was silent for a long time. In other words, this soul sword is no longer in my hands. It's just that the Naga royalty's spirit tacitly allows me to have it, right? Wuyu said, yes. Otherwise, you've seen what happens when a demon core is used as the soul crystal of a soul sword. No one can control this tyrannical soul sword. If it weren't for the Naga royalty's tacit consent, you wouldn't have been able to control this demon core. So all of this is destined. When the Naga royalty's spirit chose to temporarily reside in your brain, it was already destined. Yang Dingtian. But it doesn't seem to want to help me in the Doomsday War, right? Wuyu said. There's no need for it to do anything. You can win with the soul sword in your hand. Yang Dingtian couldn't believe it. Just with this soul sword? Wuyu nodded. Yes, just with this soul sword. Yang Dingtian. Even if it's far beyond the power of a saint, it can't destroy the overwhelming legion of doom. Wuyu said. If the Naga Duga Shuang can do it, why can't your soul sword? Yang Dingtian. But Shuang is a complete Naga. This is just a demon core. Wuyu said. Duga Shuang is just a Naga who has just completed her transformation. Compared to the cultivation of this Naga royalty, the difference is like heaven and earth. So just a demon core's cultivation surpasses Duga Shuang's. What's so strange about that? Then Wuyu said, what kind of cultivation do you think a human needs to defeat a dark dragon of the Empire of Darkness? Yang Dingtian. At least master level? Wuyu shook his head. Infinite master level can really destroy a dark dragon, a dark owl dragon. Yang Dingtian was suddenly speechless, then said, But Shuang can kill hundreds of them in seconds. Even if she's strong, it can't be at this level. Wuyu said, Of course she's that strong. With her invincible body, golden energy, and almost endless sea of qi and demon core energy storage, she can instantly kill hundreds of dark dragons and owl dragons. Yang Dingtian felt suffocated again. The gap between Naga and humans was so big. Wuyu said, And your soul sword is even stronger than the Naga Shuang. Wuyu emphasized again, I guarantee it. Equals. Everyone has a prize. Now immediately follow Kdred's WeChat public account. Chapter 963. But, Wuyu changed the topic. Yang Dingtian. But what? Wuyu said. First, this soul sword's energy is a one-time use item. How much is used is how much is lost. It is completely unable to recover. Once the demon core's energy is exhausted, it will completely lose all its power. Yang Dingtian nodded. With regards to this point, he was completely aware of it. Wuyu continued. This soul sword's energy is very, very powerful. But how much power it can unleash is completely dependent on you. Yang Dingtian. Please elaborate. Wuyu said. First of all, other than controlling it to fly or use sword arts, can you control it to use soul skills? Can you make it release sword aura? Yang Dingtian shook his head. So-called soul skills are mystical skills used by soul swords. The most typical one, which is also considered very high-end, is 10,000 swords returned to origin. But that requires at least tens of years of cultivation. But right now, Yang Dingtian's sword spirit Archo is just a few months old baby. And Yang Dingtian can only use physical attacks when he directly controls the soul sword, which means he can control it to fly, spin, dance, etc. He can't even release sword aura. Because this is a soul sword and not a human body, humans can control their own qi and profound veins to unleash mystical skills. But they can't control the sword spirit to unleash mystical skills. So much so that the majority of people can unleash mystical skills, but they don't understand the principles behind it. The so-called mystical skills are like a computer, and the mystical skills are like software. They can open the software and realize the functions. As for the principles behind it, they don't understand at all. And the soul sword is equivalent to a machine with a completely different principle from a computer. Speaking of which, it's also a mobile phone. It's impossible to make a computer control a mobile phone, without using any method. After all, computers are x86 architectures, while smartphones are mostly ARM architectures. A computer's software can't be directly used on a mobile phone. Of course, the relationship between a human body and a soul sword is even more distant than a computer and a mobile phone. Mobile phones and computers are still electronic products after all, Wuxia said. If you want the soul sword to display its true power, you must let it learn a soul skill. Yang Dingtian replied. My sword Soul A Cho might be very formidable, but it is now like a baby that is only a few months old. Any soul skill is something that only an adult sword soul can learn. Furthermore, it will take at least 10 years to learn it. To let sword spirit A Cho learn 10,000 swords return to origin was completely like asking a few months old baby to take the college entrance exam. It was completely a dream. Yukong nodded. It's impossible for a sword soul to learn a soul skill. Therefore, I still need you to control the soul sword and use the soul skill, the mermaid Queen Violet said. This is probably impossible, right? Wu Qiong said. That's right, it's impossible. No one in this world can do it, because the human body and the sword body are completely different. Queen Poisa said. Then why did you bring it up? Wu Yu looked at Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian, you want me to give birth to your child. Do you want to completely conquer me? Yang Dingtian thought for a while, but still nodded. Wu Yu said. Then let's use wisdom to speak. Let's turn something rotten into something magical. Let a person's divine sense control the soul sword and use soul skills. No one has ever succeeded in this before, and no one even thought about it. If I were to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it in 10 years, or even 100 years. But you know I'm very, very addicted to this. Use your wisdom to conquer me. Wu Yu's beautiful eyes seemed a little crazy. She was such a person. Yang Dingtian tore space to enter Buzhou Mountain and proved the relationship between the Tor space and Little Western Paradise. This was Yang Dingtian's wisdom attack. It directly made Wu Yu give up watching from the sidelines and choose to stand together with Yang Dingtian. If Yang Dingtian could solve the problem of using the human body, completely control the soul sword, and achieve myriad swords return to origin, then she would fulfill her promise and become Yang Dingtian's woman. Of course, this was secondary. Most importantly, if Yang Dingtian could reach this point, then in the Doomsday War, Yang Dingtian would have a trump card. How to achieve this? It was probably equivalent to running the computer game Call of Duty on a mobile phone. Of course, although this was a mobile phone, it was equivalent to a mobile phone from the future, with super high specifications, at least many times better than Yang Dingtian's computer. In that case, would it be difficult to achieve this? In theory, it wasn't difficult. In fact, many Android phones already had computer games, such as StarCraft and Counter-Strike. As long as a simulator was installed, one could play computer games on the phone. Of course, whether it was fun or not was another matter. Therefore, when Wu Yu mentioned this point, Yang Dingtian had a clear direction in his mind. That's right, the soul sword soul skill was different from humans' mystical skills. It couldn't be learned directly, but it could be done by adding a simulator. It was easy to say, but how difficult was it to do? That's right, it was very, 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 very difficult. It was even completely impossible. This was equivalent to asking a student who had just learned programming for less than 2 years to transfer the computer game Call of Duty to a mobile phone. He had to rely on himself to create this simulator. He couldn't download it. Was it possible? It was impossible even if he died. She looked at him and said, I'll wait for you to create another miracle. If you really succeed, then don't blame me for being emotional. Yang Dingtian, Queen Poisa, and the mermaid queen flew to the world of ice and snow at their fastest speed in the direction of the Door of Darkness. After arriving at the Door of Darkness, they first used the soul swords to dig through the thick ice and snow. Below the void was the revolving Door of Darkness. Yang Dingtian took out the primeval Nagazai gem. A mysterious light shot out and instantly melted the huge Door of Darkness. After passing through the Door of Darkness, they arrived at the Mermaid Empire. Little Tian, let's say goodbye here. Queen Poisa suddenly said. Yang Dingtian was startled. Then he said, "You want to start looking for Shuang, from here?" Queen Poisa nodded. "Of course. I don't know where to start, but I can't bear to part with you. But now we have to part, so I'll start looking from here." Yang Dingtian looked at Poisa. "Then, will you be safe?" Queen Poisa said. "As long as it's not the Queen Devil Queen, there's no opponent that I'm afraid of. Of course, even if the Queen Devil Queen comes, I'll still be able to escape." Then Queen Poisa said, "Besides, didn't you give me the demonic spirit mist cloak and demonic spirit black armor? Yaozi, that little girl, must hate me to death." When Yang Dingtian passed by Cloud Sky City, he asked Yaozi to take off the demonic spirit mist cloak and give it to Poisa. She cried on the spot. Poisa gently hugged Yang Dingtian's neck and said softly, "Little Tian, you have to remember that I have nothing to do with Duga Shuang. We've said it before." Yang Dingtian said, "I know. Duga Shuang is a Naga, and you are still an inexperienced woman." Poisa gently kissed Yang Dingtian and said softly, "Then I'm relieved." Then, she suddenly flashed and disappeared from Yang Dingtian's sight. Yang Dingtian and the Mermaid Queen entered the Mermaid Empire. They had to use the shortest amount of time to transfer the Mermaid Empire's ancient owl beasts and mermaid warriors to the Human Kingdom's sea region. Time was tight. Yang Dingtian could only stay for 1 or 2 days at most. It was impossible to wait until the transfer was completed. Just as the two entered the Human Kingdom, the Mermaid Queen Violet said casually, "Oh right, I'm pregnant." Suddenly Yang Dingtian was shocked. Chapter 964. Pregnant? Yang Dingtian was really shocked. Moreover, this crazy queen actually said it so casually. Yang Dingtian, and her had only been here once, right? Wasn't this too accurate? It was like an arrow hitting the nail on the head. After a long time, Yang Dingtian asked, "When did it happen?" Crazy Queen Violet said, "We only slept together once." "When do you think it happened?" Yang Dingtian asked. "When did you find out that you were pregnant?" Violet said, "I don't know, probably a few days ago." Yang Dingtian asked, "How did you find out? Was it a urine test or a pulse check?" Violet said, "First, I was inexplicably flustered, then my stomach inexplicably twitched, and then I found that there was a new mass of energy in my stomach, and then I knew that I was pregnant." Yang Dingtian was completely speechless. "You knew that you were pregnant, you actually went to fight with High Xian." "Don't mention this matter," Violet said. "Originally, even 10 of her were no match for me. Who knew that she was so abnormal?" Yang Dingtian said, "You saw how powerful she was in the Hell Demonic Array. How could you still block those powerful attacks? Aren't you afraid of hurting the child in your stomach?" Violet said, "You underestimate me. The child in my stomach is a real Naga. How could it be so easy to have a problem?" Yang Dingtian was really completely speechless. Then he said, "In short, you'd better be careful." "Yes," Violet said. After a while she said, "Actually, I really found out after leaving the holy land of the Snake Men Empire. In the Hell Demonic Array, when I was injured and fainted, I felt that my recovery speed was much faster. I felt that the energy gushing out of my stomach was especially special, and only then did I find out that I was pregnant." Yang Dingtian couldn't help but reach out and touch her stomach. It was still flat, compact and smooth. Sigh, if only she was born today and completely transformed tomorrow. Then, we could just let her fight in the Great War of Armageddon. We wouldn't have to look for that Nagaduga Schwanger, Violet said. Yang Dingtian was even more speechless. After a while, he couldn't help but ask, "Are you happy that you are pregnant?" Violet curled her lips and said, "The Naga born is not my child. It has nothing to do with me. This is the law of the Naga Empire." "No, Yang Dingtian. We are not the Naga Empire. The child is born our child, and it will call you mother." "Sigh, I really don't want it." Immediately, Yang Dingtian couldn't take it anymore, and slapped the fleshiest part of her body. This slap made the Mermaid Queen's beautiful eyes water, and her face flushed red. Then she smiled sweetly and said, "But there is one thing that is very surprising. After being pregnant, I am a complete woman all the time. What's wrong? You are not used to it? Young Dingtian asked. The Mermaid Queen said, No, I am just curious. At this time, won't I be able to have a good relationship with another man? Young Dingtian's eyes twitched. After a long silence, he said, After the child is born, you can give the child to me, and then you can have a good relationship with another man. I will not care about you. But before the child is born, you can't. The Mermaid Queen said, But after the child is born, it might be the same as before, and become incomplete. Only you can make me bloom. Young Dingtian was silent and ignored her words. Then, the two of them rushed to the capital of the Mermaid Empire at the fastest speed, and they didn't talk anymore. Halfway through, the Mermaid Queen Violets couldn't help but laugh. She said, All right, I am just joking with you. Young Dingtian frowned and didn't bother about her. The Mermaid Queen said, I am really just joking with you. Are you angry? Young Dingtian said, I don't think there is anything funny about this. Moreover, the root of all this is indeed my weakness, which caused me to have to use extraordinary means to deal with you. So the cause and effect of this matter is because of my unorthodox ways. That is why I am not righteous and strong. Oh, you still have so much backbone. The Mermaid Queen sneered. If you have backbone, don't try so hard to get your hands on me for the sake of my marine race army. How can a man use that thing to solve problems? The Mermaid Queen's words directly hit young Dingtian's spine. But he wasn't very angry. He understood that this crazy woman in front of him was completely unreasonable. She wouldn't be moved by soft or hard methods. He didn't know what she would do. Young Dingtian was silent and ignored her. In fact, he didn't even know why the pregnancy matter was brought up to quarreling. What, you are still silent and ignoring me? Violet sneered. Have I hit the nail on the head? Are you ashamed and angry? Young Dingtian stopped and faced the Mermaid Queen Violets, looking into her eyes. What? Do you want to fight? Violets asked. No. Young Dingtian said calmly. Are you unhappy about being pregnant? There is nothing to be unhappy about. After giving birth it will be over, the Mermaid Queen said. Young Dingtian said, I want to apologize to you. The Mermaid Queen sneered. If you can't use hard methods, then use soft methods, right? It's useless. Young Dingtian said, I shouldn't have schemed against you on the night of the wedding in the Empire of Darkness. That's right. I didn't go to your room on purpose. Based on your personality, if I didn't go, you would help me and prove that I was blind. The Mermaid Queen said, Do you think I care? It's just 1 or 2 less times. Young Dingtian said, From now on, I won't scheme against you. Whatever I want, I'll tell you. If you are crazy, I will wait until you are done and then talk to you, okay? The Mermaid Queen's beautiful eyes trembled slightly. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Okay, let's go to the capital now and settle things first. Young Dingtian said, Move all the sea tribe troops to the sea of the human countries. Of course, the first wave can only be the ancient owl beasts and the mermaid warriors. Set up defenses all the way from the eastern cloud state to the northwest sea. Humph, to put it bluntly, you want my sea tribe troops to be your cannon fodder. The Mermaid Queen sneered. Young Dingtian said, Put whatever power you have in that position. Yes, your thing is powerful. That's why you put it in your current position, right? The Mermaid Queen teased young Dingtian again. Young Dingtian didn't refute her. He only said to her, Let's go. We have to hurry. Just like that, the two of them inexplicably ignored each other and used their fastest speed to reach Shajing in the Mermaid Empire. At this time, the sea tribe troops inside and outside Shajing had all gathered and were ready to set off. Actually, they had already gathered more than half a month ago. They just needed to give the order. Young Dingtian said, Queen, you may need to announce that the Mermaid Empire has found a new home. Then immediately order the first wave of elite sea tribe troops to head to the human countries. Violet said, I'm tired. I need to rest first. If there's anything, say it tomorrow morning. Young Dingtian suddenly had a headache. This crazy woman was going crazy again. She didn't care what time it was. It was like a fire was burning her butt. Actually, Yang Dingtian knew that because of her pregnancy, her defeat by Queen Hai Xian, and other reasons, the Mermaid Queen was upset. Suddenly she exploded. Of course, the best way was to go up and kiss and hug her, then settle the grudge with one blow. But in reality, Yang Dingtian knew that this wouldn't work. This kind of situation would only work when their feelings were very deep. The Mermaid Queen was in a very complicated state of mind. She wasn't completely heartless, but she wasn't very affectionate either. So there was no point in pushing it to this point. Yang Dingtian said, "Time is very tight. Just the first wave of Sea Tribe troops will take a long time. I have to hurry up and research soul skills. That's the key to defeating the Armageddon army." "Then you can go," the Mermaid Queen said. "Anyway, our Mermaid Empire is useless to you now. At most, we'll just be cannon fodder. Don't waste your time with us." Yang Dingtian's head really hurt. He had never met such an unreasonable woman. She was really unreasonable. Qin Jiaojiao was also unreasonable, but she was obedient after a beating. But for the Mermaid Queen, spanking her was not bad. But she was pregnant. Also, Yang Dingtian really didn't have such feelings at this time. He took a deep breath and said, "Ziluo, tell me, what should I do to make you feel better, so that you can immediately order the transfer of the Sea Tribe troops?" The Mermaid Queen said, "I want you to give me the eye of the primeval Naga. Are you willing?" This treasure was the only thing that could melt the dark matter. It was the only thing that could enter and exit the Empire of Darkness and the Mermaid Empire. It was a treasure of heaven and earth. Among Yang Dingtian's many treasures, it was ranked at the top. "Okay." Yang Dingtian didn't say anything and directly handed it to her. The Mermaid Queen was stunned. Then she returned it and said, "I'm just joking with you. This is your lifeblood. I won't take it." Yang Dingtian said, "This is not my lifeblood. This is the lifeblood of your Mermaid Empire. I won't use this thing to threaten you." The Mermaid Queen held the eye of the primeval Naga and laughed coldly. "Yang Dingtian, are you so childish? Just because someone provoked you, you take out something?" "Yes, I'm childish," Yang Dingtian said coldly. "Okay, you're childish, but I'm not. Take it back," the Mermaid Queen said. "I'll give the order for the Seafolk army to move. You said you want it, so I'll give it to you. If I give it to you, I won't take it back," Yang Dingtian said firmly. The Mermaid Queen said, "Aren't you afraid that after I take this item, I will fall out with you and even stand together with Demon King Wentian?" Yang Dingtian said, "I've made a decision. I'm willing to accept any consequences." In an instant, the Mermaid Queen found it hard to back down. Her gaze turned gentle, and her tone became gentle as she said, "Yang Dingtian, I'm sorry. I feel uncomfortable for some reason, and that's why I got angry at you. This thing is yours. It's very important to you. Take it back. I'll use my fastest speed to send the Seafolk army to the northern defense line of the human kingdom. I won't be angry anymore." Yang Dingtian was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Ziluo, I won't take it back. Through this matter, I want to tell you that you have to take responsibility for everything you say." The Mermaid Queen's expression turned ugly. "Are you going to be angry with me until the end? Aren't you afraid that I'll throw it away?" Yang Dingtian's gaze softened. His voice also became gentle. "Even if we're not husband and wife, we're just close comrades. What's the point of taking this thing? Why do you have to make such a clear distinction?" The Mermaid Queen looked at the eye of the primeval Naga in her hand. She couldn't help but feel bitter. Then she kept it. Next, the Mermaid Queen Violets began to announce that the Mermaid Empire would directly form an alliance with the human kingdom. They would directly own 100,000 miles of sea and establish a new Mermaid Empire. Yang Dingtian was originally worried that Violets would go back on her words and cause the Mermaid Empire to be dissatisfied. But in reality, he worried too much. Violets had been the queen for God knows how many years. All the mermaid race were completely blind. Moreover, they didn't have any concept of the human kingdom and evil ways. They didn't care much about who they formed an alliance with, or who they were enemies with. They only cared about one thing: whether they could escape from the imprisonment space and whether they could have a new home. Violet said that they could directly own 100,000 miles of sea. Immediately, the entire mermaid empire was in an uproar. Then, under the command of the Mermaid Queen, the first wave of the Seafolk army marched majestically towards the door of darkness. Yang Dingtian and the Mermaid Queen led the army to the human kingdom without stopping at the same time. Dongli, Li Ming, Mu Dan, and the other first-class and second-class evil spirits officially left the Dark Realm. They passed through the Void Fissure Fire, crossed the border of the Abyss, and arrived at the extreme north of the world of ice and snow. Then, the group flew to the Sky Demon City at the fastest speed, to the entrance of the Empire of Darkness. If they had been a few hours later, they would have run into the scene of the Seafolk army marching majestically towards the human kingdom. That's right, in less than a month, Li Ming and the other evil spirits had hunted enough demon spirits in the Second Dark Realm. Now the Second Dark Realm was absolutely safe for them, because they basically didn't encounter any elemental creatures. In the entire Second Dark Realm, almost all the demon spirits that appeared outside were demon spirits, and they were all high-level demon spirits. Any other team, even if they were saint level, would be in fatal danger when faced with high-level demon spirits. They might even be wiped out. But Li Ming's evil spirit team was completely slaughtering these demon spirits. These silly demon spirits were completely stunned when faced with the evil spirit energy. They stood there motionless, allowing themselves to be slaughtered. And most importantly, this evil spirit team didn't need to search for demon spirits all over the world. The aura of evil spirits was a fatal temptation to demon spirits, especially when more than a dozen first-class and second-class evil spirits gathered together. It was simply a super evil spirit energy amplifier. All the demon spirits within a few hundred miles took the initiative to come to the door. So in a short period of time, this team hunted a terrifying number of demon spirits, almost wiping out all the demon spirits in the Second Dark Realm. Li Ming and the others didn't have to wait for long. After a few hours, the Queen Devil Queen came out of the Empire of Darkness. "Have you hunted enough?" the Queen Devil Queen asked. Li Ming nodded and said, "There's still a lot left. Let's go." Immediately forge the Chaos Emperor armor and revive His Majesty the Demon King's body. The Queen Devil Queen said. Li Ming said, Are we giving up just like that? Seizing Yang Dingtian should be the first choice." The Queen Devil Queen said, "There's basically no chance of seizing Yang Dingtian's body. Wu Yu is completely on his side. Moreover, he has created a very heaven-defying technique. Even a saint-rank powerhouse will find it difficult to defeat him in one fell swoop." Li Ming said with a trembling voice, "How is that possible?" The Queen Devil Queen said, "He has created a black hole attack that can directly devour any energy, including the energy of a saint-rank powerhouse." Li Ming was speechless. He couldn't believe it. The Queen Devil Queen said, "We really have to hurry. Otherwise, when he breaks through to the saint rank, our evil ways will be completely helpless against him." Li Ming nodded. Then, the Queen Devil Queen took out her magic wand and melted the dark matter. She led the many evil spirits into the Empire of Darkness. Tens of thousands of ancient giant beasts of the Mermaid Empire, carrying millions of mermaid warriors, went to the dark door in the ice and snow at the fastest speed. Although they were swimming in the water, the speed of these ancient giant beasts was still very, very fast. Their swimming speed reached nearly 1,000 miles per hour. Tens of thousands of giant beasts moved together quickly. The entire seabed of the Mermaid Empire trembled violently. In less than a day and night, Yang Dingtian and the Mermaid Queen led tens of thousands of ancient giant beasts and millions of mermaid warriors to the front of the giant dark door. The Mermaid Queen Violets took out the eye of the primeval Naga and melted the rotating giant dark door. The melting became bigger and bigger. Hundreds of meters, thousands of meters, Violets kept injecting mystical chi. Finally, the entire giant dark door was melted to a diameter of tens of thousands of meters. "Forward!" Violets ordered. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly giant beasts, carrying countless mermaid warriors, rushed out of the giant dark door and rushed directly into the world of ice and snow. Then, the ancient giant beasts and mermaid warriors all released powerful fire energy. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the ice and snow in their path all melted into water. The ancient giant beasts dived into the water, and then quickly went south. 1, 2, 3, 4 feet 5. Countless ancient giant beasts leaped out of the dark door one after another, all of them releasing powerful fire energy. Suddenly, the ice and snow in the surrounding tens of thousands of meters and hundreds of miles all melted into water. Wherever the ancient giant beasts passed, the ice and snow all melted. Under the leadership of the mermaid warrior general, they went south, south, south. At the same time, the entire sky above the ice and snow was densely packed with winged cavalry of the Council of Light. Thousands of winged cavalry lined up in a line and guided the migrating sea race army into the sea. For this operation, the Council of Light mobilized countless troops and forces. All the people on the coastal land, where the sea race army was stationed in the sea, had been evacuated. All the ships in this sea area had also been evacuated. Qin Wancho personally led the winged cavalry in this operation. In the sky, huge ancient giant beasts rushed out of the ice layer and melted the ice and snow into the sea. Then dozens, hundreds, thousands of primordial beasts cruised through the ice and snow of the melted sea and quickly headed south. Qin Wancho had goosebumps all over his body. It was truly a spectacular scene. The Council of Light only had one ancient giant beast, Xiao Xiao, and it was already invincible on the sea. Now there were tens of thousands of ancient giant beasts. This was really the most powerful navy in history. The Council of Light's navy was already very powerful, but in front of this army, it was really like a toy. The thousands of ancient giant beasts were endless. Finally, they formed a 1,000-mile formation and quickly went south. After more than a day and a night, the 10,000 ancient giant beasts completely rushed out of the giant dark door and completely left the Mermaid Empire. When the last ancient giant beast rushed out of the giant dark door, there were already thousands of giant beasts leading millions of Mermaid Empire soldiers into the humans' northern Zhongzhou Sea area. They melted more than 10,000 miles of ice and snow and entered the northern sea area. The moment they entered the sea area, they saw the sky and the deep sea. Countless mermaid warriors, almost going crazy, let out an incomparably enthusiastic cheer. After the excitement, they began to gather neatly and waited for the Mermaid Queen to give the garrison order. At the same time, in the Empire of Darkness, the largest dark castle started to turn. Countless energy tentacles in the castle crazily absorbed the energy of several continents and welcomed the refining array. Then countless demon spirits were thrown into the refining array one by one. One after another, there were countless of them. In the end, more than 1,000 demon spirits were all thrown into the refining array. Then, the entire refining array exploded with a shocking light, almost illuminating the entire Empire of Darkness. These thousands of demon spirits were just to forge the Chaos Emperor armor. After the Chaos Emperor armor was completed, the Demon King Wentian would be truly resurrected. He could leave the Skirich imperial capital, leave the Throne of Darkness, and leave the Empire of Darkness. At that time, the apocalyptic war would truly begin, and he would truly rule the world. Chapter 965. What would a Chaos Emperor armor, made from more than 1,000 demon spirits, look like? It was completely unimaginable. The dark castles left behind by the Dark Empire, the refining array, and the fusion array, were really like the 3D printers of the Earth era. As long as there were enough materials and a complete formula, anything could be printed. The Dark Dragon, Dark Owl Dragon, and the terrifying Burrowing Dragon were all formulas left behind by the ancient martial arts civilization. The Chaos Emperor armor was also a formula left behind from the ancient times. However, its level was much higher than the Dark Dragon and Dark Owl Dragon. Among the countless dark castles, there was only one that could forge such an amazing Chaos Emperor armor. Moreover, the energy required to make a Chaos Emperor armor was more than 1,000 times that of a Dark Dragon that was tens of thousands of meters long. From this, it could be seen how amazing the Chaos Emperor armor was. The huge dark castles were operating crazily. The demon territory, which was closest to it, was being devoured crazily. The entire continent of the demon territory began to collapse, causing violent earthquakes. The intense tremors could be felt even by the evil ways thousands of miles away. Of course, it would take a long time for the refining array to completely refine the energy of more than 1,000 demon spirits. At the same time, on the ground of the human nations, under the amazing organizing power of the Council of Light, countless people in the north were retreating south. The final statistics showed that more than 200 million people were retreating. The people in the territory from 50,000 miles to 100,000 miles would all become a war zone. All the people here were retreating south. The retreating area included the north, the Sunset Mountains of the northwest mainland, the Land of Chaos, and the North Central region. The total land area was more than 40 million square kilometers, which was close to 1/3 of the total land area of the human nations. For this evacuation, the Council of Light used more than 10 million troops. They used more than 1 million flying and land mounts. They used more than 10,000 different types of ships. This was the largest evacuation in history. Looking down from the sky, one could see that almost every road was filled with people who were moving and evacuating. It was unknown how many bustling cities had been emptied out. In the territory in the south, countless houses were built like raindrops. With the Council of Light's incomparably powerful organizational capabilities and massive amounts of resources, although the entire evacuation process was incomparably complicated, it was also relatively smooth. In this world of ice and snow, more than 10,000 kilometers of ice and snow had been completely melted into a temporary river that was several hundred kilometers wide. Countless ancient behemoths of the Mermaid Empire, along with millions of mermaid warriors, were still moving south in a steady stream. Yang Dingtian watched from the sky until the last ancient giant beast rushed out of the giant dark door and swam towards the sea 10,000 li south. Then, he and the Queen of the Mermaid Empire flew into the sky and headed south together. Soon, the rotating dark door was closed by the dark matter again. Following the departure of the ancient giant beast, the water continued to condense. A day and a night later, the last ancient giant beast rushed into the deep sea. At this time, from the central continent to the northwest continent, tens of thousands of miles of sea were filled with an astonishing number of ancient giant beasts. Fortunately, these ancient beasts were different from Xiao Xiao. Their energy requirements did not come directly from food. Instead, it came from the direct exchange with the ocean environment. They were somewhat like plants. Of course, they would also eat fish, prawns, and sea beasts. Therefore, for the time being, these ancient giant beasts had a huge impact on the ecology of the sea. Therefore, in the agreement drawn up by the Council of Light, the number of these ancient giant beasts would be greatly reduced in the future. It would probably be reduced to less than 1/10 of the current number. Next, this group of ancient giant beasts and millions of mermaid warriors would have to defend more than 100,000 li of sea. They and mermaid warriors could be seen at any part of the sea in the war zone. For the time being, they would completely replace the navies of the human countries. At this time, the upper echelons of the Council of Light and the Mermaid Empire were closely arranging the changes in defense. As for Yang Dingtian, he could not wait until the Mermaid Empire finished setting up the defense. Who knew how long that would take? He bid farewell to the Queen of the Mermaid Empire, Violets. "I'll leave this place to you, please," Yang Dingtian said. After the inexplicable madness, the Queen of the Mermaid had become much calmer and more serious. She nodded her head. Then, Yang Dingtian directly tore space and flew in the direction of the spatial tear. At this time, Yang Dingtian's position was the closest to the spatial tear from the end of the infernal domain. When Yang Dingtian passed by the sky above the infernal domain, suddenly, he heard a series of loud noises. The entire infernal domain seemed to have experienced the end of the world. Tens of thousands of li of the infernal domain and countless giant mountains were crazily collapsing. Countless pieces of land were terrifyingly torn apart. The entire infernal domain was undergoing a terrifying upheaval. Originally, there was a layer of blood-red energy fog above the infernal domain, but now it was gradually turning black. There were also countless bolts of lightning that crazily tore the air apart. Yang Dingtian felt that some kind of upheaval was definitely happening in the Empire of Darkness. From the northern end of the infernal domain, Yang Dingtian opened a spatial door and jumped into the spatial tear. Then, he flew tens of thousands of li and arrived at the connection between the spatial tear and the Little Western Paradise. He opened another spatial door and left the spatial tear. Suddenly, the incomparably huge Mount Buzhou appeared in front of him again. Yang Dingtian quickly flew over. After a while, Yang Dingtian had already landed on Mount Buzhou. This time, Yang Dingtian didn't painstakingly climb the mountain. Instead, he directly went to the entrance of the High Priest Association and used his celestial qi to melt a few thousand meters of thick snow. Then he came in front of the mountain gate. At this time, Yang Dingtian was really embarrassed in his heart. He had just left the High Priest Association a few days ago. Logically speaking, it was normal for him to visit a few decades later. In the end, he came again a few days later. This feeling was really awkward. But fortunately, the entire High Priest Association was meditating at this time. Basically, only Nero was awake. After a while, Yang Dingtian stretched out his hand to knock on the stone door. He used his celestial qi to knock on the door. So even though the sound wasn't loud, it was enough to transmit into the depths of the High Priest Association. Then he stood outside and waited. After a few minutes, the stone door opened. Inside was a bald Nero. Seeing Yang Dingtian again, Nero's eyes widened. It was as if she was saying, "Why are you here again? Wuyu, are you already pregnant?" Nero smiled. "You want to take me away? You're too impatient." Yang Dingtian's face turned red. He said, "Madam Nero, I'm here to borrow books." "Oh, that's fine." Nero said, "You're Mr. Nihility's successor. You can borrow any of the books here." Then, Yang Dingtian followed Nero into the High Priest Association. "What kind of books do you want to borrow?" Nero asked. Yang Dingtian, "It's about the difference between sword soul skills and human mystical skills. There's also the difference between a sword soul and a human body, etc." Nero nodded and said, "There is. Although sword soul has declined in Little Western Paradise, it was once passed down." Yang Dingtian was stunned. He asked, "Why did it decline?" Nero said, "Compared to humans, the cost of cultivating sword soul in Little Western Paradise is much higher. Also, the power of sword soul is much lower. Perhaps we are weaker than humans in terms of our soul and brain." Yang Dingtian, "But I feel that the demon fox race is smarter." Nero said, "That's because we take a longer time to develop, and you guys don't use your brain well enough. But don't worry. Because of this, the High Priest Association has done a lot of research on sword soul and left behind many works." Then Nero said, "What do you want to achieve?" Yang Dingtian, "I want to use my consciousness to control soul swords and complete soul skills." Nero said, "Have you already used the Naga Royalty Demon Core on your soul swords?" Yang Dingtian, "Yes." "How is it?" Nero asked. "Its power is amazing." Yang Dingtian, "But my sword soul is still too young. It can't use soul skills." Nero said, "Yang Dingtian, a few priests in the High Priest Association have studied your direction for a long time." Yang Dingtian was surprised. "Really? What's the result?" Nero shook her head and said, "It's a failure. And she has already given up. She spent about 1,000 years on this topic." Yang Dingtian said happily, "Then she must have walked very far in this area. Who is this person?" "A demon fox." Nero said, "Actually, she was a demon fox martial artist and a sword soul worshipper. But because of her soul and brain, her sword soul cultivation was very slow. So she did a lot of research on sword souls. She was able to enter the High Priest Association because of her research on sword souls." "It's actually her?" Yang Dingtian was really surprised. This woman had a fox face, and was a woman full of special charm. He didn't expect her to study sword souls. Yang Dingtian continued. Then if I don't understand something, can I communicate with her? Can I awaken her meditation? Neru said. Usually not, but if it's you, I think there won't be a problem. Then, Neru led Yang Dingtian deeper and deeper. After several tens of thousands of meters, they arrived in front of an incomparably huge library. The collection of books here was even bigger than the Silver Palace Library. Neru directly led them to a study room and said, Here, they are all books on sword souls. Yang Dingtian looked up. There were more than 10,000 books. God knows how long it would take to finish all of them. The Great War of Destruction was about to erupt. Yang Dingtian didn't have that much time to read these books. If it was the energy library, Yang Dingtian could directly enter meditation to read. Yang Dingtian asked, Your Excellency Neru, has Lady Demon Fox finished reading all the books here? Neru nodded. Not only has she read these books, she has also memorized them. Yang Dingtian said, Then can I awaken her now? I want to ask her directly. Neru said, How much time do you have? I don't know, Yang Dingtian said. Maybe in a few days, the Temple of Annihilation will send a declaration of war to the human kingdom. Neru said, Then it's definitely too late to ask her in reality. Why don't you directly enter the Demon Fox High Priest's meditation world? Yang Dingtian was stunned. Is this okay? Directly entering someone else's meditation world required a very, very intimate relationship. Sleeping together and entering someone else's meditation world was even more intimate than entering someone else's body. Neru said, She has a good impression of you, so you can try. Moreover, the topic of your research is exactly what she wants to break through. Of course, this is still very difficult, because if you enter her meditation world, it means that her brain is not guarded against you. You can cause fatal damage to her at any time. Basically, no one would agree to others entering their brain world, even if they are as close as husband and wife. Then, Neru brought Yang Dingtian to the outside of a stone room. At this moment, the stone door was tightly shut. Neru hesitated for a moment, but still pushed the door and entered. Inside the stone room, it was a completely different world. Everywhere was snow white. This demon fox high priest indeed had the face of a fox. The entire room was covered with snow-white fur. Even the walls and ceiling were covered with snow-white soft fur. Entering the room was like entering the clouds. And the entire stone room was decorated with a few luminous pearls, illuminating the stone room. When stepping into this snow-white world, Nara hesitated for a moment, then walked in. Yang Dingtian took a look and immediately retreated, then immediately turned around. Because the demon fox high priest was not wearing anything, she hoped to completely release herself into meditation. In front of her, there was a crystal ball. Nara walked forward gently, pressed her jade hand on the crystal ball, and injected a bit of energy. Immediately, the demon fox high priest trembled and immediately woke up. Seeing that it was actually Neru who woke her up, her face was incomparably furious. Her gaze was cold as she said, "What are you doing?" In her gaze, she did not hide the hostility and coldness towards Neru at all. "If you don't give me a sufficient reason today, I won't let you off," the demon fox said coldly. Yang Dingtian immediately said from outside, "Yang Dingtian greets the demon fox." Hearing Yang Dingtian's voice, the demon fox's voice softened a little and said, "Oh, it's you. You haven't left yet. Why are you looking for me?" Yang Dingtian was about to say. The demon fox inside said, "Oh, come in and talk." Yang Dingtian hesitated for a moment, then said, "I think it's better for me to talk outside." The demon fox casually picked up a long snow-white fox fur coat, put it on, and then said, "Come in and talk." Yes, Yang Dingtian walked in the Empire of Darkness. After dozens of hours, finally, the loud noise from the dark castle stopped, and the light gradually dimmed. The Chaos Emperor armor was completed. "Take out my contracted body," the Demon King Wentian's voice said. "Yes," Queen Devil Queen said, and then carried out the energy jade coffin. Chapter 966. The Queen Devil Queen carried the energy jade coffin and flew to the sky above the Dark Castle's fusion array. At this moment, there was an armor floating in the huge melting array. This was the Chaos Emperor armor that was forged by 1,000 demon spirits through the refining array and the fusion array, overdrawing the energy of the entire demon domain. This was probably the most awe-inspiring armor in history. Its entire body was extremely dark. When it was black to the extreme, it was darkness that swallowed all light. It was completely wrapped from head to toe, without a single hole. Normally, it was completely impossible to wear it. There were 2 sharp horns on the top of the armor's head. The position of the eyes was still flickering with the light of flames, constantly jumping. On the back of the armor, there was a pair of faintly discernible wings. The back, arms, and legs of the armor were all covered with sharp barbs. Streaks of strange light flowed on the armor. This was really the most terrifying armor in history, and also the most awe-inspiring armor. The Queen Devil Queen threw the jade coffin containing the body directly into the melting array. In an instant, the entire jade coffin was instantly reduced to ashes. A body suddenly drilled into the black shadow of the Chaos Emperor armor. Immediately, the entire Chaos Black armor seemed to have come to life, completely devouring this body inch by inch. The darkness that erupted almost swallowed the entire castle. This body suddenly let out a demon-like roar. Then, inch by inch, it was completely devoured and wrapped by the entire Chaos Emperor armor. A moment later, this Demon King's contracted body and the Chaos Emperor armor were completely fused together. Only in this way could it accommodate the Demon King Wentian's terrifying cultivation and energy, and not be reduced to ashes. "Your Majesty, it's your turn," the Queen Devil Queen said. The Demon King Wentian's black shadow sat on the throne of darkness. At this moment, without the protection of the evil spirit, the energy in his body would quickly dissipate when he left the throne of darkness. Ever since he sat on this throne, he had never left the Skirich imperial capital. Although he couldn't breathe, he still took a deep breath. Then he suddenly turned into a black shadow. Whoosh! His soul and the energy in his body leaped into the grand fusion formation. Only in the fusion array could his energy and soul enter the primal Chaos Emperor armor. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Incomparably powerful cultivation energy poured into the contracted body of the Chaos Emperor armor. His entire body let out a heaven-shaking roar. The entire castle of darkness shook violently. The infernal continent above the Empire of Darkness was once again turned upside down. This contracted body was originally unable to withstand the Demon King Wentian's terrifying cultivation. 200 years ago, the Demon King Wentian and Nihility Piaoling had both reached the half-saint realm. After that, the Demon King Wentian devoured the evil spirit of the primordial evil spirit and instantly broke through to the saint rank. That was not all. On the throne of darkness, it was constantly devouring terrifying energy. Therefore, his cultivation had already reached the peak of the saint level. Of course, after 200 years of devouring on the throne of darkness, he should have broken through to the demigod realm. Unfortunately, he was only a human after all. His energy reserve and profound veins were limited. He would never be able to break through to the demigod realm. That was the realm of the Naga. Therefore, his cultivation had always been fixed at the peak of the saint level. But even so, this contracted body could not withstand such powerful energy at all. It would be turned into ashes in almost an instant. However, the contracted body had already completely fused with the primal Chaos Emperor armor. As for the Devil King Wentian's possession, it was not only the possession of the soul, but also the profound veins and qi. Therefore, the contracted body inside was completely destroyed over and over again. But there was no other way. Its entire body was imprisoned and modified by the primal Chaos Emperor armor. Therefore, it could not be destroyed even if it wanted to. Just like that, amidst the trembling of the entire Darkness Empire, amidst the collapse of the Demon City, the Demon King Wentian's soul, energy reserve, profound veins, and cultivation were all poured into the contracted body. They were all completely covered by the primal Chaos Emperor armor. However, The fusion formation of the Castle of Darkness stopped spinning. The Demon King Wentian slowly descended. Then, under everyone's expectant gaze, the Demon King Wentian walked out of the Castle of Darkness step by step. Instantly, everyone knelt down. "Greetings, Your Majesty Demon King. Congratulations on your rebirth, Your Majesty Demon King." The Demon King Wentian slowly stretched out his hand. Of course, it was completely covered by the primal Chaos Emperor armor. Then he stroked his face and body. Finally he had a body again. It felt so good to be able to touch it. Devil King Wentian slowly walked in front of Devil Empress dead concubine and extended his hand to caress her incomparably beautiful face. It had been 200 years since the last time he touched her. Ha 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 ha. The Demon King Wentian laughed in a low voice. His voice was like the roar of the earth being torn apart, like the roar of flames burning. His laughter grew louder and louder. In the end, it was like thunder. Boom! Then a pair of burning dark flame wings suddenly appeared on his back. He flapped his wings and flew into the sky, towards the peak of the Skirich imperial capital. He flew higher and higher. In the end, he flew to the peak of the Skirich imperial capital. His body had also become incomparably huge, so that the people below could see him even if they were thousands of miles away. I, the Demon King Wentian, have waited for this moment for many years. From today onwards, I am the ruler of the entire world. From today onwards, the entire world will tremble in my evil claws. I want fear and darkness to completely engulf the entire chaotic world. God of Chaos, today is the beginning of my true challenge to you. Today is the beginning of a new era for the entire world. From today onwards, the entire world will be the world of my evil ways. Ha 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 ha. Immediately, everyone in the Skirich imperial capital flew out and knelt in the air. All the Legion of Doom in the Dark Castle knelt. All the Dark Dragons and Dark Wyverns knelt in the air. Long live the Demon King. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The Demon King Wentian instantly arrived in the celestial palace of the Skirich imperial capital after a few flashes. He actually flashed a distance of thousands of miles in an instant. This flash technique even surpassed the saint-level demon spirits. This was because this chaos black armor was forged by more than 1,000 demon spirits. Therefore, in terms of flash technique, it was equivalent to 1,000 demon spirit mist clothes. Of course, its damage resistance was also equivalent to 1,000 demon spirit black armor. Therefore, in the entire world, except for Naga, the Demon King Wentian was not only invincible. In the entire world, no one could hurt him in the slightest except for Naga. The Demon King Wentian sat on his dark throne. His entire body had once again turned into a 100-meter-tall giant. In the hall a few hundred meters below, thousands of people were kneeling. All the elites of the evil ways were already here. Devil Queen, what's going on with young Dingtian's Naga sword soul in the Empire of Darkness? The Demon King Wentian asked. Devil Queen bowed and said, Your Majesty, you once had a Naga royalty demon core in the Netherworld Sea. Young Dingtian briefly came into contact with it when he was in the Netherworld Sea. Perhaps it has something to do with it. But please rest assured, Your Majesty, young Dingtian is completely powerless to use the Naga royalty sword soul. Last time, the Naga royalty sword soul only sensed the sorrowful cries of Naga Duga Shuang, so it attacked to save him. A few days ago, in the sacred land of the Naga Empire, young Dingtian was in danger, violets, and Poisa almost died in the hands of Hai Xan. But the Naga royalty sword soul still did not attack, so it can be seen that young Dingtian cannot use the Naga royalty sword soul again. Then Devil Queen said, Moreover, the Naga royalty demon core has been returned to the Little Western Paradise's High Priest Association by Wuyu a few years ago. If young Dingtian and Wuyu entered the Little Western Paradise to ask for it, they would definitely enter the Skull Hall and fall into Yongshi's hands. But the two of them are still safe and sound, so they must have seen through Yongshi's plan. Currently, young Dingtian's hopes are all placed on finding the Naga Duga Shuang. The Demon King Wentian said. Then, send a declaration of war to the human countries. The Great War of Extinction has begun. As you command. Devil Queen bowed. The Demon King Wentian said slowly. The Great War of Extinction that occurs once every 200 years has begun again. However, it will only be a one-sided massacre, and there won't be another 200 years of reincarnation. This time, I want the human countries to have more than 1 billion deaths. Human countries, Tiando League, Council of Light, begin the countdown to the end of the world. Mount Buzhou, inside the Grand Priest Association. The demon fox Grand Priest with the face of a fox was wearing a fox fur coat. After hearing Yang Dingtian's explanation, she became very excited, because this was exactly the same direction as her research. After calming her rapid breathing, the demon fox Grand Priest said, "Are you sure you want to use your consciousness to control the soul swords, and use the soul skill 10,000 swords return to origin?" Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "Yes, demon fox. You have researched the sword soul for more than 1,000 years, so I want to ask for your guidance and help." "So, you want to enter my brain and meditate with me? In the endless meditation world, you want to learn what I have learned over 1,000 years?" The demon fox Grand Priest said, "I'm ashamed, but it's like this." Yang Dingtian bowed and said, "This request was very rude." Once again, entering someone else's brain was more private and more dangerous than entering someone else's body. The demon fox Grand Priest said, "You should know that my research direction is exactly the same as yours. Because my bloodline is more similar to a demon fox. My brain is not as strong as a human's. Therefore, it is very difficult for the sword soul to grow. Therefore, I want to use my consciousness to control the sword soul. I have worked hard for more than 1,000 years, but I have failed. Furthermore, no one in history has succeeded. You only have less than half a month's time. Are you sure you want to spend your time on this?" Yang Dingtian said, "I'm sorry, I have no other choice." The demon fox Grand Priest closed her eyes for a long time. After that, she shook her head and said, "I'm sorry, Sir Yang Dingtian. Although I'm very, very excited that you have chosen the same research topic as me, I still can't agree. But I still can't agree to let you enter my meditation world, to study the sword soul." Yang Dingtian's face darkened. He didn't blame her, but only felt that it was a pity. This was very normal. No one was willing to let others enter the depths of their brain. This meant that they were completely defenseless. "Thank you, Demon Fox Grand Priest. I can completely understand." Yang Dingtian bowed deeply again. The Demon Fox Grand Priest shook her head and said, "Sir Yang Dingtian, the reason why I rejected you is not because you want to enter my brain. It's because I have failed in my research for more than 1,000 years. Therefore, my direction is wrong. If you follow my direction, you will only go further and further, and it will be futile. Therefore, in the precious time before the apocalyptic war, you should try something more promising." Yang Dingtian said, "May I ask, Demon Fox, what is the direction of your research? What method do you want to use to allow your consciousness to learn sword soul skills?" The Demon Fox Grand Priest said, "Let's use the 10,000 swords return as an example. My method is to modify the entire 10,000 swords return scrolls code. I want it to learn from the sword soul to the human consciousness. However, it will be unleashed through the soul sword." Yang Dingtian said, "Please forgive me for being direct, Demon Fox. Your direction is definitely wrong. The deeper you research, the more you will go in the opposite direction. This is because this 10,000 swords return requires the sword soul to control the treasured sword to unleash it. Other than the sword soul, the soul scrolls Sea of Aura and Xian Meridians are also the main topic of unleashing it. If you modify it for humans to learn, it will be suitable for human Xian Meridians and Sea of Aura. Then it will be no different from normal Xian skills. The soul sword will not be able to unleash it." The Demon Fox Grand Priest said bitterly, "You are right. I spent countless years to modify it. I did learn it. However, I unleashed it myself, and not the soul sword. This is a very strong Xian skill. However, on humans, it is only a very normal Xian skill. It is because of this that I lost all hope, and gave up on this research." Yang Dingtian said, "Demon Fox, I have a direction. Do you want to hear it?" The Demon Fox Grand Priest said, "Please say it." However, please forgive me for being direct. This field is very profound. You have not learned much. Any opinions and directions you have might be ignorant and childish. Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "Let me give you an example. In our world, there is no need to worry. In our world, there is something called a computer. There is another thing called a cell phone. The software running in the two machines is completely different. The format is also different. Therefore, the software on the cell phone cannot be run on the computer. The software on the computer also cannot be run on the cell phone. It is just like how sword soul skills cannot be unleashed on the human body. However, in our world, although the software on the computer is different, it can be run on the cell phone. As long as we install a simulator, it will be fine. Therefore, what we need to do is to create a simulator. It will allow our consciousness to directly unleash soul skills. However, it will still be unleashed through the soul sword." Immediately, the demon fox was completely stunned. Yang Dingtian's unconstrained idea was like a bolt of lightning. It completely tore apart her hazy sky and illuminated her direction. She instinctively felt that Yang Dingtian's direction was right. Immediately, the blood in her body was about to boil. Then she said excitedly, "Quick, let's start immediately. Immediately enter my meditation world." The demon fox pulled off the fox fur on her body. She could not wait. Chapter 967. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but say weakly, "Do I need to take off my clothes like this when I'm in meditation?" Demon Fox High Priest smiled. "Oh, there's no need. It's just my personal hobby. I'm used to releasing myself all the time and enjoying the feeling of freedom." Yang Dingtian was speechless. "But I'm right beside you. Now you can leave." Demon Fox High Priest looked at Neru. Her tone wasn't polite at all. Yang Dingtian's face twitched, but he didn't say anything. After all, this was a family matter within the association. As an outsider, it wasn't good for him to interfere. Moreover, Neru probably wouldn't mind this. Yang Dingtian said, "Then what should we do next?" Yang Dingtian really didn't know what to do. Yang Dingtian had experience communicating with others in the depths of meditation many times. Of course, every time it was with Shiwu Piaoyan. Shiwu Piaoyan could easily enter the depths of his mind. Moreover, he was a consciousness. Now that there were two living people, how could they enter each other's meditation world? Demon Fox High Priest immediately went to look for things. Soon, she gathered a bunch of things and started to build a crystal energy formation. Instantly, countless crystals and special metals floated in the air and formed a ball, wrapping Yang Dingtian and Demon Fox High Priest inside. These crystals were mainly illusion stone, spirit stone, and soul enchanting stone. In addition, it was filled with 5 types of demon cores. Then, the energy formation ball started to spin slowly. Demon Fox High Priest closed her eyes and felt the aura inside. She frowned slightly and said, "You should take off your clothes too. The aura inside is a bit blocked." Yang Dingtian said, "Yes." Then, he took off all of his clothes and presented them to the Demon Fox High Priest, Chi-Tan. The energy ball spun faster and faster. Finally, it turned into an airtight light shadow, wrapping Yang Dingtian and Demon Fox High Priest inside. The entire energy ball shone with a blurry and dreamy light. Yang Dingtian instantly felt drowsy. Demon Fox High Priest said, "Put down all your defenses and follow your instincts. Also, even if you want to sleep, you have to keep your eyes open." "Yes," Yang Dingtian replied. Demon Fox Grand Priest said, "Later, the entire energy formation will be completely dark. Only my eyes will release light. You have to stare into my eyes and try your best to let your gaze enter my eyes, and then my brain. Do you understand?" Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "Yes." On Earth, there was a saying that the eyes were the windows to the soul. This saying was true. Here, the eyes were the only access point for the energy of the brain. The energy circle spun faster and faster. The energy radiance it released made people feel comfortable to the extreme, making them feel lazy all over. They only wanted to do one thing, and that was sleep. Then, the surrounding light gradually dimmed. The light in the eyes of the demon fox grand priest became brighter and brighter. Furthermore, the light in her eyes was constantly changing. Yang Dingtian stared at the light in her eyes. Then, his mind was in a daze, and he gradually immersed himself in it. Then, Yang Dingtian saw that the light in the eyes of the demon fox grand priest was actually a world of light and shadow. It was like a kaleidoscope, like a movie. However, the scene in her eyes was too small, and he couldn't see it clearly. The surrounding energy spun faster and faster, and the environment inside became darker and darker. Finally, the entire energy formation was completely dark. The only light was the eyes of the demon fox high priest. In her eyes, countless images were still changing, as if a movie was being played. However, it was too far away and he couldn't see it clearly. Yang Dingtian seemed to relax all of his mind, but also seemed to gather all of his mind. Staring at the light and shadow in the eyes of the demon fox high priest, he completely let go of all the distracting thoughts in his heart, and threw away all the thoughts in his mind. Indeed, the world of light and shadow in the eyes of the demon fox high priest became clearer and clearer. The scene also became bigger and bigger. It was as if he was watching a movie. The screen quickly got closer. Yang Dingtian saw it clearly. In the scene there was only a door. Behind the door, there was a beautiful world. The demon fox high priest, who was wearing a snow-white fox fur coat, stood behind the door and kept waving at him. "Come in, come in." At this moment, Yang Dingtian thought of the demon fox high priest's eyes. This was a pair of eyes that had a very special charm. It was like a real fox's eyes. Looking at it, one would feel that it was captivating. No wonder it could play light and shadow scenes in her eyes. With this distraction, the scene quickly became blurry and scattered, and it went far away. Yang Dingtian hurriedly threw away all distracting thoughts and continued to stare at her eyes. Finally, the scene became clear again. Yang Dingtian felt as if his body was flying towards the door in the scene. He flew closer and closer, closer and closer, closer and closer. Finally, he directly rushed to the front of the scene. It was as if he had directly rushed to the front of the movie screen. Swoosh! Yang Dingtian flew through the door. It was as if his entire person had completely drilled into the movie. Swoosh! A dreamy light. Everything around him disappeared. Even the light and shadow scene in front of him disappeared. Yang Dingtian was already in a world of birds and flowers. This was a soft and beautiful grassland that stretched as far as the eye could see. The sky was blue as if it had been washed, and the floating clouds were as white as snow. In the distance of the grassland there were sparse and straight trees. Small flowers of unknown names dotted every part of the grassland. Naughty squirrels were jumping on the big trees. Butterflies and bees were competing to be the first to collect honey around a small flower. This was really a beautiful world, like a dream. This world was, of course, the demon fox high priest's meditation world. This beautiful grassland was also the world in her mind, the beautiful world she loved the most. Yang Dingtian had already entered the demon fox high priest's brain domain world and entered her meditation world. He began to walk on the beautiful grassland, looking for the demon fox high priest's figure. After walking for about 10 miles, he went over a mountain that wasn't high. Suddenly, he saw a wooden house in the grassland at the foot of the mountain. Yang Dingtian ran down, came to the front of the wooden house, and opened the door. Inside, the demon fox high priest, who was covered in red, was sitting on the ground covered in fox fur, lazily flipping through a book. Inside the wooden house, there were books and scrolls all over the place. "I heard that you want to learn sword soul skills, is that right?" The demon fox high priest said. "Yes," Yang Dingtian said. The demon fox high priest said, "You want to write a simulator that allows your consciousness to use sword soul skills, and use soul swords to display them, right?" Yang Dingtian said, "Yes." The demon fox high priest said, "I can clearly feel that you will definitely succeed in this direction. All you need is time." Yang Dingtian said, "Then how much time do we need?" The demon fox high priest said, Choose which soul skill to learn. Yang Dingtian said. 10,000 swords return then. The demon fox high priest said. That's good. You have to completely understand the code of the 10,000 swords return scroll. After that, you have to learn how to write the human version of the 10,000 swords return. Only then can you fully understand the difference between the two. And only then can you write this simulator. I don't know how long this process will take. I only know that it took me 1,000 years to write the human version of the 10,000 swords return. 1,000 years? Yang Dingtian didn't dare to believe it. The demon fox high priest said. Of course you don't need that long, because I took many detours. However, I don't know how much time you need. Yang Dingtian said. How many codes does the 10,000 swords return scroll have? The demon fox high priest said. 89 million codes, 90,000 paragraphs and 3,000 chapters. Yang Dingtian thought for a while before saying. It's indeed a very complicated scroll. Do we have enough time now? The demon fox high priest shook her head and said. Right now it's not enough. Then what do we do? Yang Dingtian asked. The demon fox high priest said. That's why we need to sleep. Yang Dingtian was stunned. Sleep? Yes, sleep. The demon fox high priest said. Continue to sleep until you don't need to sleep anymore. Yang Dingtian understood. Sleeping during meditation meant entering deeper layers of the meditation world, exploring the limits of the meditation world that the two of them could reach. This was because Yang Dingtian only had less than 10 days left. If he wanted to write this sword soul simulator, he didn't know how many years it would take. Therefore, he had to enter a very deep level of meditation to make 10 days become countless years. After that, the demon fox high priest set up an energy array. The two of them sat cross-legged inside, and the energy array started to spin. Once again, illusory light and shadow appeared in her eyes. Yang Dingtian stared at her eyes again. Once again, a door appeared in her eyes. Yang Dingtian quickly approached, and then entered the door again. Whoosh! His entire person once again entered the second layer of the demon fox high priest's meditation world. Just like this, the two of them kept repeating and repeating. Yang Dingtian went through the demon fox high priest's eyes again, and again in the meditation world, entering the next layer of her meditation world. Third layer, fourth layer, fifth layer, sixth layer. Finally one day, Yang Dingtian asked, Your Excellency Demon Fox, how long do we have to sleep? The demon fox high priest said, Sleep until we completely forget everything. Finally, he didn't know how many times. Yang Dingtian stared at the demon fox high priest's eyes, and once again entered her meditation world that had an unknown number of layers. Whoosh! Suddenly he was in a void. Not far in front of him was a huge snowy mountain, Buzhou Mountain. It was actually Buzhou Mountain. This Buzhou Mountain existed in reality. Yang Dingtian flew towards Buzhou Mountain, melted the ice and snow, and arrived at the mountain gate of the High Priest Association. Yang Dingtian is here to visit. Then the mountain gate opened. Yang Dingtian walked in. Everything was exactly the same as the High Priest Association's cave. He came to the cave hall, and then came to the demon fox high priest's room that was covered in fox fur. At this moment, she was sitting on the fox fur naked. Seeing Yang Dingtian come in, she smiled and said, You're here to pull me? Yes, Your Excellency. Yang Dingtian said. Let's go, then let's begin. The demon fox high priest said. Then, she stretched out her jade hand and said, Pull me up. Yang Dingtian stepped forward and pulled her up. Then, the demon fox high priest brought Yang Dingtian to the High Priest Association's library. When they arrived at the library, the demon fox high priest took out a scroll and passed it to Yang Dingtian. This is the Myriad Swords Return Soul Skill Scroll. Take it and read it first. When you've finished reading and understood it, we'll continue with the next step. Yes. Yang Dingtian received the scroll and started reading. At this moment, in the real world. Nera was guarding outside the demon fox high priest's door. Then, she was shocked to see the demon fox high priest pulling Yang Dingtian out. The two of them smiled and walked towards the library. Then, Nehru passed a scroll to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian began to immerse his consciousness and read it. Nehru's heart trembled. This was the deepest level of the meditation world. The meditation world and the real world completely overlapped. It was exactly the same. The overlap of reality and illusion was only in the span of time. The difference was countless times. This was simply too terrifying. In the meditation world, Yang Dingtian continued to read the Myriad Swords Return scroll. This scroll had tens of millions of codes. Yang Dingtian already had a certain level of understanding towards the divine realm. He could completely read it paragraph by paragraph. But even so, time still passed day after day. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a full half a year had passed. Yang Dingtian finally finished reading the Myriad Swords Return scroll. Your Excellency Demon Fox, I finished reading it. Yang Dingtian said. I spent a year and I finally finished reading it. At this moment in the real world, Nehru saw that Yang Dingtian said to the Demon Fox High Priest, Your Excellency Demon Fox, I finished reading it. I spent a year and I finally finished reading it. Nehru looked at the hourglass in her palm. It hadn't even been an hour since Yang Dingtian started reading the scroll. How did a year pass? The Demon Fox High Priest said, Very good. Then from now on, you will begin to comprehend the method of attack in this scroll, and thoroughly comprehend the principle. Then, based on this principle, you will write the human version of the Myriad Swords Return to Origin. Just the process of writing alone took me more than 200 years. I don't know how much time you will need. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but feel suffocated, because if he could write the human version of the Myriad Swords Return to Origin, it meant that he had completely grasped the divine realm and could write his own scrolls. Empire of Darkness, Skirich Imperial Capital. At this moment, in the entire celestial palace, only the Demon King Wentian sat on the dark throne alone. The Queen Devil Queen had already gone to issue a challenge. Everyone else had already begun to prepare for the world-ending battle. The Demon King Wentian looked up at the sky and muttered to himself, Yang Dingtian, what are you doing now? But no matter what you are doing, it is already meaningless. Suddenly, his enormous body suddenly shuddered. He said in shock, Who are you? Why are you still in this body? Immediately, another voice sounded in his body. Me? Of course I am the owner of this body. No, no, no. The Demon King Wentian roared. You should already be dead. Your soul should be dead. No, no, no. Not only is my soul not dead, it is only imprisoned. Your entry has freed me from this imprisonment. Another voice sounded. On the other hand, your soul has been split into many parts, and is far inferior to my soul. So who is the owner of this body? And who is the real Demon King? We still don't know? Ha ha ha. No, no, no. The Demon King Wentian said sternly. This is impossible. This is impossible. I have already given you countless years of glory. Don't forget, you were originally just a piece of trash. You signed a contract with me. I made you incomparably powerful. And then you gave this body to me to become my contracted body. How can you break the contract? Another voice smiled and said, Your Majesty Demon King, not only do I have a contract with you, I also have a contract with another person. Who? The Demon King Wentian said in shock. Soul Departing Palace. Another voice said. The Demon King Wentian trembled and said, Soul Departing Palace, Soul Departing Palace? How can he do this? How can he do this? Another voice said, So accept your fate. My soul is stronger than yours, so I can nibble away at your soul bit by bit, and take over this body bit by bit. At that time, I will be the new Demon King. I will inherit everything you have, ha 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 ha. No, no, no. The Demon King Wentian's soul roared with all his might. Chapter 968. Following that, Yang Dingtian entered an incomparably difficult learning process. Originally, in the meditation world, he had spent a full year to read all the 90,000 passages of the Return of the Thousand Swords, and read them thoroughly. But this was a soul skill that was suitable for soul swords to use. although soul swords had a qi and xian veins. And the pure structure of the xian veins was similar to the human body to a certain extent. But after all, soul swords were soul swords, and the human body was the human body. There was a complete difference in essence. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to adapt it into the 10,000 swords returned to origin used by humans. Of course, the demon fox high priest had already completed this task. But she couldn't directly hand over her results to Yang Dingtian, because the purpose of Yang Dingtian's adaptation wasn't to write the human version of 10,000 swords returned to origin, but to completely grasp the difference between the two in preparation for writing the so-called simulator. Following that, Yang Dingtian read it over and over again. The second time, it only took half a year. The third time, it only took 4 months. The fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time. In any case, up until now, Yang Dingtian didn't even know how many times he had read it. He could even completely recite the code backwards. Moreover, he already completely understood the logical relationships in order within. In fact, Yang Dingtian had already completely mastered another very advanced reading method. Every paragraph unfolded and directly transformed into an arrangement to form a pattern. Then, memorizing this pattern was equivalent to memorizing the entire paragraph, as well as the purpose it achieved, logical relationships, and so on. Of course, there were quite a few of these arrangements, about a few thousand. However, there were only a few hundred conventional arrangements. It was unknown how many times Yang Dingtian had read and memorized these thousands of combinations of patterns, but he had completely memorized them. Therefore, Yang Dingtian only needed a few days to read the entire 10,000 swords returned to origin. Now, most of the time, he was studying the logical relationships between the paragraphs. This was incomparably complicated, and it involved the problem of talent and brain power. It was no longer something that could be solved by memory, to the extent that in order to understand the principles behind certain passages, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to directly extract a certain passage, and then use his profound energy to circulate it, to see its effects, as well as those profound veins that were used, the level of profound energy that was used, as well as the reactions between profound energy, and so on. This was because learning the godly realm required one to completely understand the code. It was time to research the principles behind its realization, as well as its relationship with the body's profound veins. When a paragraph is fulfilled, those body parts are touched. Wait, this was probably the most difficult knowledge in the world. At this time, the role of a demon fox high priest was highlighted. This was because there were a lot of theories and a lot of experiments. A demon fox high priest could directly expose Yang Dingtian in the meditation world, and could even accompany him in countless experiments. It was also because of the existence of the demon fox high priest that Yang Dingtian was able to avoid many detours. In this way, Yang Dingtian thoroughly comprehended the 10,000 swords returned to origin scroll paragraph by paragraph. Furthermore, he had a clear understanding of the principles behind its implementation. Then, in order to achieve this goal, the level of the human body's profound veins, profound energy level, profound energy reaction, and so on. Every paragraph was experimented with until it achieved the exact same effect as the soul sword. Yang Dingtian used the results of the experiment to deduce and completed the 10,000 swords returned to origin scroll, paragraph by paragraph. Just like this, the unit of time was completely calculated in years. Year after year passed. He didn't know how many years had passed. Yang Dingtian felt that his hair and beard had all turned white. In fact, because too much time had passed, Yang Dingtian had somewhat forgotten his mission, and had already wholeheartedly devoted himself to this extremely boring and extremely mysterious godly realm. Huff! Finally, Yang Dingtian finished writing the last paragraph. Then he couldn't help but cry with joy. At this moment, Neru could no longer see the movements of Yang Dingtian and the demon fox high priest. The two of them were just sitting there cross-legged. Everything was going on in the depths of the meditation world. It's done, it's finally done. Yang Dingtian picked up the scroll in his hand, This was the human version of the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin. It was written by Yang Dingtian, through countless experiments, paragraph by paragraph, imitating and verifying it. In his excitement, Yang Dingtian couldn't hold it in, and hugged the demon fox high priest's body. And in reality, Neru, who was guarding by the side, also saw Yang Dingtian, hugging the demon fox high priest's delicate body in reality. One had to know that Yang Dingtian could make the demon fox clan go into heat. Therefore, the demon fox high priest's breathing suddenly became heavy, and the temperature of her beautiful body began to rise. Yang Dingtian felt the temperature of the body in his embrace rising, and couldn't help but feel his mind waver. Then he let go of the demon fox high priest and said, "Take a look, is what I wrote correct?" The demon fox high priest said, "You don't have to show it to me. This is already a complete Xian skill scroll. You just have to learn it, and see if you can use the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin." In the meditation world, Yang Dingtian held the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin scroll in his hands, and directly inserted his consciousness and Xian Qi. Instantly, the entire scroll turned into ashes. There were countless numbers of codes and mysterious characters that emitted light. Then, an incomparably complex energy surged into Yang Dingtian's Xian meridians, Qi, Si, and brain. After a while, Yang Dingtian had completely learned the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin scroll. Of course, it should be considered that the computer had finished downloading and installing it. "Alright, let's give it a try," Yang Dingtian said. In the meditation world, Yang Dingtian and the demon fox high priest arrived at the peak of Mount Buzhou, outside the association's cave. Yang Dingtian began to condense his Xian Qi, and prepared the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin. Out. 10,000 Swords Return to Origin. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly, countless naked Yang Dingtian figures shot out. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. Densely packed, tens of thousands of Yang Dingtian figures crazily attacked every inch of land. Boom 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 boom. Countless amounts of snow exploded. Countless Yang Dingtian silhouettes destroyed every place he passed by. In a short moment, the mountain peak in the distance was flattened by tens of meters. Ha 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 ha. The demon fox high priest had been waiting for this moment for many years, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then he laughed too much, and actually blocked his stomach, and rolled on the ground with all his might. Yang Dingtian was also completely speechless. Was this still called 10,000 Swords Return to Origin? This was clearly 10,000 Swords Return to Origin. But thinking about it, it was normal. This was originally the soul skill of the soul swords. And what was released were tens of thousands of soul swords. Adapted into a human Xian skill, of course. What was released were countless human figures. However, this scene was really shocking and also shocking. Ha 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 ha. The demon fox high priest was still holding his stomach and laughing with all his might. He rolled on the snow and couldn't stop at all. "Your Excellency demon fox high priest, can you not be so exaggerated?" Yang Dingtian was speechless. Okay. The demon fox high priest tried hard to stop rolling, and then pressed on his stomach that was already throbbing in pain and said, I can't stand up anymore. Help me up." Yang Dingtian went forward and pulled her up. "Did I succeed?" Yang Dingtian asked. "Of course you succeeded. Didn't you see how shocking the scene was just now?" The demon fox high priest said, and then was about to burst into laughter again. "Alright, then let's hurry to the next step," Yang Dingtian said. Then in the meditation world, Yang Dingtian helped the demon fox high priest into the High Priest Association's cave and returned to the big library. At this moment, the demon fox high priest had already stopped laughing and looked seriously at Yang Dingtian. "You have already completed everything that I have done. Next, you will have to rely on yourself to write the so-called simulator. As for me, I will at most be researching together with you. In this aspect I am also a blank." "I understand, Your Excellency Demon Fox," Yang Dingtian said. The first two steps were to comprehend the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin scroll, and write the human version of 10,000 Swords Return to Origin scroll. Yang Dingtian had already completed both. Next was the most crucial, and also the most difficult step. Writing the so-called simulator would allow Yang Dingtian to use his consciousness to control the soul swords, and use 10,000 Swords Return to Origin. If the previous changes were to imitate, then Yang Dingtian was about to truly create. This was a great undertaking that no one had ever done before, and no one in the future did at this moment. The Demon King Wentian in the Empire of Darkness had already gradually calmed down. It's really been hard on you. My contracted body actually shrank itself into an extremely small space in the brain, and then pretended to be dead for many years just for this moment. Your scheming is truly astonishing. Wentian laughed coldly. That voice said, "Yes, but it's worth it, isn't it? You should understand how resolute my will is. How could I only ask for a few decades of pleasure?" The Demon King Wentian said, "But even so, how difficult would it be for you to completely occupy the entire body? That's right, your soul is complete. But how difficult would it be for you to nibble away the entire brain bit by bit, and seize control of the entire body?" That voice said, "That's right. The world of the brain is simply too big. I've already hidden in the most remote place, isolated from the rest of the world. As for you, you have already occupied the majority of the brain, and all the crucial parts. I need to counterattack one place at a time, but I'm not in a hurry. I'll nibble away inch by inch from the very corner of the brain. In any case, you don't dare to face me head-on, right?" The Demon King's body suddenly twitched, and then he said, "Let me ask you a question." That voice said, "Please speak." The Demon King Wentian said, "What's your attitude towards Yang Dingtian?" That voice said, "On this point, our attitudes are completely the same. Our positions are also completely the same. Although we are fighting for the position of Demon King, our interests are completely the same. We only have one goal, and that is to rule the entire chaos world, and become the ruler of the entire celestial plane." The Demon King Wentian said, "Then, you are also determined to obtain the greater space technique, right?" That voice said, "Yes, that's right." The Demon King Wentian said, "All right, then how about we sign a contract?" That voice said, "Speak." The Demon King Wentian said, "I can give you this body, and I can also give you the cultivation of a peak saint. I can even give you a copy of the greater space technique. I can also give you the entire throne of darkness, and the Skirich imperial capital." That voice laughed and said, "Wentian, your generosity is truly beyond my imagination." The Demon King Wentian said, "Since the master of the soul-leaving palace is so suspicious of me, then I have to respect his will." That voice said, "If you give everything to you, then what do you want?" The Demon King Wentian said slowly, "I only want one thing, and that is Yang Dingtian's body." That voice said, "But you have already lost the primordial evil spirit. If you try to possess Yang Dingtian again, your soul might repeat the same mistake and be counterattacked by his soul." The Demon King Wentian said coldly, "Before I possess him, I will completely destroy his soul. I only want his body, but before that, we need to interrogate him about the greater space technique." That voice said, "Not a bad idea, but unfortunately, Yang Dingtian is definitely not someone who will compromise so easily. If he was willing to compromise and hand over the greater space technique, then he wouldn't have been able to survive until now." The Demon King Wentian's voice suddenly became incomparably cold. He said slowly, "I will use the billions of lives in the human countries, all of Yang Dingtian's relatives, all of his friends, including the lives of his wife and children, in exchange for the greater space technique. If he is unwilling to hand it over, then all of his relatives will die." That voice suddenly trembled and said, You are crossing the bottom line." The Demon King Wentian said, "You have already forced me to the extreme. What bottom line can I protect?" That voice said, "Then, have you considered the will of the soul-leaving palace's Princess Ningning? She will frantically tear you into pieces." The Demon King Wentian said, "Act first and report later. At that time, I would have already become the new Yang Dingtian. Would she kill me? Moreover, Don't forget that Princess Ningning went against the will of Her Majesty the Empress. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been imprisoned. We just need to be in line with Her Majesty the Empress." That voice immediately fell into a short silence. The Demon King Wentian said, "Use the lives of the entire world to force Yang Dingtian to hand over the greater space technique. Then destroy his soul, and I will occupy his body. I will give you the position of the Demon King, peak saint-level cultivation, and the entire Empire of Darkness. Do you agree?" That soul immediately entered a state of rapid trembling. Chapter 969. Empire of Darkness, Skirich Emperor's capital. After a long time, the soul's voice said, "You should know that there is a huge prerequisite before fulfilling this contract." The Demon King Wentian said, "That's right, capture the Nagaduga Shuang. Otherwise, if she falls into Yang Dingtian's hands, everything will be impossible." The soul said, "Moreover, our Empress will definitely not want to see a second real Naga in this world." The Demon King Wentian said, "Then you and I will go all out to find the Nagaduga Shuang, and the battle of extermination will be temporarily left to the Devil Queen." The soul sneered and said, "Your Empire of Darkness and Legion of Doom will fight this battle of extermination. It's just a game." The Demon King Wentian said, "That's right, it's a game, a complete killing game." In the meditation world, time passed day by day, year by year. During this countless time, Yang Dingtian was studying the difference between the structure of a soul sword and the structure of a human body. For this, Yang Dingtian used his consciousness to analyze his soul sword that was close to the emperor rank. Of course, it was not very convenient to study his own Xian veins and body. Therefore, Yang Dingtian studied the demon fox high priest Xian veins and body. During these endless years, Yang Dingtian studied every inch of the demon fox high priest's body. He even dissected her living body countless times. Of course, he dissected her in the meditation world, and not in reality. However, everything felt exactly the same as reality, including the terror and pain. He even opened her Xian veins, and observed their reaction when they used the 10,000 swords returned to origin. This was definitely the most difficult and complicated task that Yang Dingtian had ever undertaken in his entire life. At this moment, Yang Dingtian really missed his master, Shiwu Piaoyan. A simulator like this would be a piece of cake for him, but for him, he would have to start from scratch. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, in fact, Yang Dingtian had already forgotten the time. In the meditation world, it could be decades, 100 years, or even longer. Finally, Yang Dingtian had thoroughly researched the two versions of 10,000 swords returned to origin. He had studied every reaction of the soul sword and the human body. Finally, Yang Dingtian began to try to use the martial arts civilization code to write this simulator. The method that Yang Dingtian used was the dumbest method, which was to simulate every segment of the story. It was not like playing PS4 games on a smartphone, which could be done with an Android simulator. To Yang Dingtian, this was truly too difficult. It was simply impossible. Yang Dingtian immediately wrote a simulator that targeted the 10,000 swords returned to origin. It wasn't even a simulator anymore, but a converter. Every segment was converted. This way the work would be very, very long. But at least, it was relatively simple. At this moment, the demon fox high priest had a complete understanding of Yang Dingtian's thoughts. She also began to join in the description work. The two of them divided and wrote the 90,000 segments of 10,000 swords returned to origin, each responsible for half. Of course, this way, the converter scroll written in the end might not be much smaller than the 10,000 swords returned to origin scroll. This method was not wise, but it was the best method at the moment. At this time, Sky Demon City had completely become a dead city. There were no longer any residents here. Whoosh! Queen Devil Queen's figure suddenly rushed into the sky from Sky Demon City. Then, she flapped her huge wings and went all the way south from Sky Demon City. Under the construction of the Council of Light, the originally chaotic land full of blood and evil had become countless towns and villages, a paradise on earth. However, at this time, there was no longer a single citizen in this paradise on earth. Countless castles, countless houses, and countless villages had all been empty. The tens of millions of people here had all been evacuated to the southwest continent. Of course, this chaotic land was definitely not empty. The entire land here had been turned into a huge military base. Countless cannons and countless soldiers were frantically building all kinds of defensive lines. When the Queen Devil Queen saw these defensive lines, she immediately laughed disdainfully. This group of people was really wasting their energy. In front of the Empire of Darkness's Legion of Doom, these defensive lines were not even comparable to a castle built by a child with sand. They could be destroyed with a gentle push. And the Council of Light Corps on the ground, who were frantically training, also saw the Devil Queen's figure flying across the sky. Almost everyone knew this person's identity. The soldiers only raised their heads and tried hard to see the Devil Queen's figure. No one cried out in alarm or fear. After the Devil Queen flew past, they continued to train and build their defensive lines. The Queen Devil Queen flew out of the chaotic land and arrived at the vast sea. Then, she continued to fly towards Zhongjing. At this time, the entire sea was densely packed with the figures of the Mermaid Empire's seafolk army. Incomparably huge ancient beasts and countless powerful mermaid warriors. The seafolk army was still setting up defenses in the tens of thousands of miles of sea. Moreover, they were actually the first battlefield's last line of defense. Behind them were countless people of the human countries. In front of them was the battlefield and countless Council of Light Corps. The Queen Devil Queen still curled her lips in disdain. The Mermaid Empire's seafolk army could be considered powerful, but compared to the Empire of Darkness's Legion of Doom, they were still nothing. A few hours later, the Queen Devil Queen flew into the central continent. Here, she deliberately flew very low, so that the people on the ground could see her clearly. The central continent was the most prosperous continent in the human countries. It was the most densely populated place, so they could not move south. The city here was densely packed with people. The Queen Devil Queen finally got what she wanted. When the people below saw her figure, they let out waves of terrifying screams. The Council of Light had conquered the central continent for many years, but until now, they had not been able to gain the loyalty of the majority of the people. Of course, these people did not oppose Yang Dingtian and the Council of Light. They even supported them to a certain extent. However, they had lived a rich life for too long and had thought a lot. So when they thought about problems, they were more based on their own interests. It was impossible for them to fight to the death with the Council of Light. Moreover, because of the large number of people in the north moving south, the interests of the people in the central continent were damaged to a certain extent. So, it aroused the dissatisfaction and resistance of many people in the central continent. The Council of Light used absolute force to suppress them. With the arrival of the war, the people of the central continent were filled with resentment towards the Council of Light. They felt that this war had nothing to do with them. It was completely caused by Yang Dingtian. They were completely implicated by Yang Dingtian. Finally, the Queen Devil Queen flew to the city of Zhongjing. The world's largest city had completely entered a state of war. Almost all the streets were densely packed with the second and third line legions of the Council of Light. All the entertainment and extra businesses had stopped. Everything had made way for the war. All the people had to serve the war. In this regard, the Council of Light did not talk about human rights. Instead, they directly used their authority to force every person to contribute to the upcoming war. So under this kind of pressure, the city of Zhongjing became a city filled with resentment. The Queen Devil Queen, after circling the city of Zhongjing, arrived at the heart of the city, the Tiando League main hall. The Devil Queen circled the surroundings of the main hall a few times before landing on the square in front of the main hall. She slowly said, "Temple of Annihilation Nihility Piao Ling, requests to see the leader of the Tiando League, Yang Dingtian." Her voice easily resounded throughout the entire city of Zhongjing, causing all the people to tremble. The door of the Tiando League main hall slowly opened. Dongfang Minmi and Zhuo Qingqi stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Your Excellency Devil Queen." At this moment, the two of them had mixed feelings. The woman in front of them should have been the leader of the Tiando League, the savior of the world. But now, she had become the biggest enemy, the person who wanted to destroy the world. The Devil Queen glanced at the two of them and said, "Where is your sect leader Yang Dingtian?" Dongfang Minmi said, "Sect leader has something to do and is not here." "May I ask what is the matter, Devil Queen?" "It's the same if you tell us." The Devil Queen pulled out a jade disc from her sleeve and slowly unfolded it. "I represent the Temple of Annihilation, the evil ways, the Empire of Darkness, and the ruler of the world, His Majesty the Demon King Wentian. I formally declare war on the ruler of the human countries, the ruler of the Council of Light, and the leader of the Tiando League." The Devil Queen's declaration of war was very, very simple. But her voice still resounded throughout the entire Zhongjing. Declaration of war. The evil ways had finally declared war. The world-ending war had arrived. The world-ending war that had been going on for 200 years had finally arrived. The memory that was long gone, but incomparably deep, had come once again. All of the people in Zhongjing were filled with endless fear and trembling. At the same time, the originally clear sky suddenly darkened. The two suns were covered, and the entire Zhongjing was shrouded in darkness in an instant. "It's finally here, it's finally here." Dongfang Minmi's body trembled slightly, and then he said, "Is the world-ending war finally here?" The Devil Queen smiled and said, "Yes, the world-ending war is here. But this time, there won't be a savior. This doomsday war was the real doomsday war. All the people of the human countries, all the towns and villages of the human countries, will be turned to ashes in this war. There is no savior, the human countries, your end is here." The Devil Queen's voice easily drilled into the ears of all the people once again. Suddenly, countless people couldn't hold back their fear, and screamed and cried. The Devil Queen asked again, "Where is your sect leader Yang Dingtian? Have him come out to receive the declaration of war." Dongfang Minmi said, "He has something to do. He's not in Zhongjing. He's gone." The Devil Queen laughed and said, "That's ridiculous. The world-ending war has begun. And the leader of the human countries, Yang Dingtian, has actually disappeared. Your doomsday plain is too desolate." As soon as these words came out, everyone heard it. Yang Dingtian had disappeared? Yang Dingtian had disappeared? You provoked the world-ending war, and now you're running away? Suddenly, the fear of countless people turned into anger, and they rushed out to smash things and roar. They brought the copied challenge to the Eastern Cloud region, to the Land of Chaos, to the Northwest Continent, to Cloud Sky City, to the Northern Middle region, to the Southern Barbarian region, to the Ingzhou region, to the Northwest Continent, to the extreme south. They would spread the challenge to every place, every city, and every person in the human countries. The biggest war in the history of this world had begun. The world-ending war had begun. Chapter 970. In just 2 days, the letter of challenge of the Doomsday War spread throughout the human countries. In an instant, the world was shocked. Of course, many people were already mentally prepared for this moment, because the Chaos Times had started spreading rumors about the Doomsday War a few months ago. There was even a related description about the Legion of Doom. Therefore, many higher-ups and powerful people had a certain understanding of the power of the Legion of Doom. However, when the Doomsday War really arrived, everyone still felt an unprecedented shock. Then the entire world was in an uproar. First, the riots in Zhongjing and Zhongzhou rose and fell one after another. This was really a very ridiculous thing. The people of Zhongzhou, especially the people of Zhongjing, were already terrified to the extreme before the Legion of Doom arrived. The Council of Light was right next to them and could raise their swords at any time. Instead, they started riots again and again. Of course, this kind of riot was not organized. There was only one goal, which was to drive the Council of Light out of Zhongzhou. They definitely would not become enemies with the evil ways. At first, the slogans were very chaotic, but later, they became very unified. Give me back peace, don't want war. Expel the Council of Light, and stay neutral with the Temple of Annihilation. Of course, there were more radical slogans later. For example, Yang Dingtian was the sinner who caused the war, and Yang Dingtian should sacrifice himself to eliminate the war, and so on. In short, their only goal was to drive the Council of Light out of Zhongzhou, and take the opportunity to express goodwill to the evil ways. In fact, many vassals who had lost their territories and armies tried to send secret envoys to contact the evil ways again and again, indicating that they were willing to give up Zhongzhou. Especially after the evil ways attacked and occupied Zhongzhou, they were willing to serve the Temple of Annihilation and contribute their strength to the evil ways to completely control Zhongzhou. In short, they were leading the way. On the verge of war, Zhongjing became the most complicated area in the world. Countless monsters crawled out at the same time. Countless riots took place one after another. There were even demonstrations and gatherings every day. Countless people tried to drive the Council of Light away with their own will. It was as if by doing so, they could avoid half of the war. Therefore, it was laughable that before the Legion of Doom arrived, the second and third tier legions of the Council of Light had already started fighting. In the beginning, they only dealt with the rioting civilians. Later, they began to use powerful force to suppress the armed elements with ulterior motives. Countless small-scale battles took place one after another. As for the vassals of the Central Plains, they sent out waves of secret ships in an attempt to escape to the Snakeman Empire. This was because there were many human fugitives in the Naga Empire, and they had become officials in the Naga Empire. However, the entire sea region of the human countries had been completely sealed off. Not to mention a ship, even a board could not enter the sea. The situation in Zhongzhou State was so complicated, but it was completely different in the West Continent. In Ironforge City and Xijing, Yang Dingtian's enemies had always existed, but those who were loyal and even worshipped Yang Dingtian were much more numerous. Of course, in the face of the Great War of Armageddon, those who were afraid to fight and those who were willing to fight were evenly split. Therefore, there were basically no large-scale riots in the West Continent. Those who were afraid of war could only hide in deserted places and whisper. In the Southwest Continent, it was completely different. There were shouts of fighting and killing everywhere. Almost everyone on this land had been liberated by the Council of Light. All the cities, villages, fields, and manors here had been allocated by the Council of Light. Therefore, the people on this land were the most fanatical and loyal to the Council of Light. When the letter of challenge was sent, countless people spontaneously arrived at the castles of the Council of Light. They shouted slogans of support and loyalty, and swore to fight evil ways to the end. Even more than shouting slogans, they worked even more frantically to produce all kinds of war materials, and used their own actions to show their support for the Council of Light. Countless young and strong people enthusiastically wanted to join the Council of Light Legion. There were nearly 100 million people in the West Continent who had evacuated to the south. Tens of millions of them were all settled in the Southwest Continent. For this reason, the people of the Southwest Continent did not have any enmity or ostracism towards the refugees. Instead, they generously accepted them, took the initiative to build camps for them, and took the initiative to provide food to these refugees. Here, the Council of Light even directly helped one family after another, directly allowing refugee families to live in the homes of the Southwest Continent's natives. The Southwest Continent was definitely a new continent that belonged to the Council of Light. They were infinitely loyal to Yang Dingtian. The other incomparably fanatical and loyal was the Heavenly Edict Academy. Because of the arrival of war, the Heavenly Edict Academy had to retreat to the Southwest Continent. However, many students of the Heavenly Edict Academy directly expressed their desire to leave the academy and head to the front lines. Of course, without a doubt, these students were forcibly transferred to the Southwest Continent. In this war, the Council of Light had two major backlands. The first was, of course, the southwest continent, and the other was the southern barbarian continent. When the continent north of the Sunset Mountain Range had completely fallen, then the people of the west continent, the entire central continent, and the east continent would have to retreat to the Ing continent, the southern barbarian continent, and the southwest continent. Then, the entire west continent and central continent would become a battlefield. Of course, if even the Ing continent, the southern barbarian continent, and the southwest continent fell, then, the people of the entire human country would basically all be sacrificed. The entire human country would almost completely fall. The highest level of the Council of Light would lead a small number of people to retreat to the extreme south and resist. Of course, if even the extreme south had fallen, then, the human country would be destroyed, signifying the end of the war and the complete defeat of the human country. Of course, if Yang Dingtian's soul sword did not unleash its full power, and did not find the Naga Duga Shuang, then this ending would be very difficult to avoid. As the declaration of war spread everywhere, the Council of Light immediately raised the entire human country to level 1 war readiness. Then, the war order and declaration of war spread throughout the entire human country. Then, the mass evacuation of countless people entered a frenzied pace. At the same time, countless troops were continuously heading north. Countless cannonballs, missiles, and giant crystal crossbows were half of the tidewater transported to the predetermined battlefield. Countless troops, numbering in the millions, were stationed within the prepared war zone defense line at the fastest speed. The entire elite force of the Council of Light was rushing to every position on the battlefield at the fastest speed. Standing on the mountain, Qin Wanqiu and Dongfang Minmi looked at the endless stream of troops from the northwest continent entering the Land of Chaos. According to their expectations, the Land of Chaos was very likely to become the first battlefield of the war. At the same time, countless cannons and winged cavalry entered the Land of Chaos. Qin Wanqiu suddenly said, "Master Dongfang, we clearly know that using the human army to fight against the Legion of Doom is like throwing an egg at a rock. Why do we still do this?" Dongfang Minmi was silent for a long time before saying, "To express our will to resist. Even if it means death, we will fight to the end." Qin Wanqiu instantly fell silent. Dongfang Minmi continued, "Also until the very end, we will not give up hope. We must thoroughly understand the Legion of Doom through battle. Perhaps they are not invulnerable." Qin Wanqiu saw the fully armed elite army rushing east to the battlefield. The leader was his son Qin Huaiyu. Instantly, Qin Wanqiu's eyes twitched, and his expression became solemn. Empire of Darkness, Skirich Imperial Capital. The Demon King Wentian had handed over the entire Doomsday War to the Devil Queen. However, he had appointed the first commander of the battlefield Shura Vulture. The reason was simple. Once the Legion of Doom left the Empire of Darkness, they would not be able to circulate their energy, nor could they be reborn in the refining and fusion arrays. They would have to rely on Vulture's talent as a celestial spiritualist to reform and regenerate the shattered Legion of Doom. Also because of the arrival of the Doomsday War, Willingzi, who had been imprisoned all this time, finally regained his freedom. He had been imprisoned for almost a month. During this month, it was as if he had been forgotten by everyone. No one asked about him, and no one visited him, including his own daughter Vulture. Tomorrow, dispatch a world destruction barbarian army from the Dark Castle, a dark dragon from the Dark Castle, and a dark dragon from the Dark Castle. The Demon King Wentian said, "Rest well today. Enjoy the joy of slaughter tomorrow." "Yes, Your Majesty." Everyone bowed in unison. After everyone left, the Demon King Wentian suddenly said, "My dear demon concubine Shura." "Yes, Your Majesty." Shura Vulture stopped. The Demon King Wentian said, "Do you still remember my promise to you?" Shura Vulture nodded. The Demon King Wentian said, "I will confer the Northern Middle Continent, the Great Middle Continent, the Southern Barbarian Continent to you. You will become a veritable queen." Shura Vulture bowed and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." The Demon King Wentian said, "Then will you be loyal to your mission, loyal to me?" Shura Vulture said, Yes, Your Majesty. I will be loyal to you and to my mission. I will never forget who gave me everything I have. The Demon King Wentian said. That's good. Tonight is the night before the battle. Stay here and serve me in bed. Vulture's delicate body suddenly trembled, and her entire face turned completely pale. The thing she was most worried about had finally happened. What, you don't want to? The Demon King Wentian said coldly. His eyes suddenly jumped like flames, full of doubt and a dangerous aura. Vulture's body suddenly felt as if it had been electrocuted. At the same time, it was filled with coldness from the inside out, and it was freezing to the bone. Chapter 971. Of course, Vulture wasn't willing. Before merging with Shura and transforming, she had continuously fallen, and finally fell directly into the abyss of filth. She had lost all her dignity and pride. Now, she had become Shura Vulture, the incomparably powerful Shura Vulture. She treated this as a rebirth, a chance to start anew. Especially at the wedding that night, Yang Dingtian had satisfied all her glory and vanity. She felt that she had regained her pride and dignity, so she really didn't want to lose it again. Sleep with the Demon King Wentian? Of course, if Yang Dingtian really became the new Demon King, she wouldn't care. Instead, she would feel honored. In her heart, she even felt that Yang Dingtian, really becoming the new Demon King, was the perfect situation. And the Demon King in front of her was a terrifying shadow, like a demon and not like a human. Sleeping with him should be completely depraved. Then she had struggled to break free and regain her glory, only to fall back into filth again. However, if she refused, there was no doubt that she would anger the Demon King Wentian. Perhaps she would lose everything, including her powerful cultivation, and this perfect and seductive body. She could compete with Wu Yu and the Devil Queen in terms of beautiful and sexy body and appearance. Suddenly, Vulture fell into a life and death choice. She would either lose her dignity and fall into filth, or lose her cultivation and perfect body. Vulture felt that the air in the entire hall had frozen. She could even hear her own heartbeat, and the Demon King Wentian's impatient voice clearly. At this time, no one could help her. She suddenly remembered that she was very important in this doomsday war. She was absolutely indispensable, because only she could infinitely resurrect the Legion of Doom. Evil ways couldn't do without her now. They couldn't even use evil spirits to suppress her will and soul, because all of her talent as a celestial spirit master came from her soul and consciousness. More importantly, she vaguely heard the Demon King say that her talent as a celestial spirit master was not only useful in the war, but even more in the future. Therefore, the problem now was that Demon King Wentian couldn't leave him, he couldn't do without him. So she could refuse him. Moreover, the Demon King Wentian couldn't take back Shura's body and her cultivation. Thinking of this, Vulture suddenly became brave. She gritted her teeth and was about to refuse. However, when he raised his head and saw Demon King Wentian's gigantic figure, as well as his blazing eyes, Spirit Vulture's heart was filled with boundless fear. The courage he had just mustered disappeared once again. She was really afraid of losing everything. At this time, Wulingzi suddenly walked in quickly and knelt down in front of the Demon King Wentian. Your Majesty, this old slave hasn't seen his daughter Vulture for many days. Tomorrow is the beginning of the war. This old slave wants to talk with his daughter. Your Majesty Demon King, please grant his wish. As soon as these words came out, Vulture was stunned and looked at Wulingzi in disbelief. He was trying to save her from this predicament. Her great-grandfather, the real cheap father. When did he become so brave, so unafraid of death? If there was one person in this world who was more greedy, vain, and afraid of death than Vulture, it was undoubtedly her biological father, Wulingzi. All the shortcomings of Vulture's character came from Wulingzi. Last time, even if Yang Dingtian's cultivation wasn't as good as Yang Dingtian's, Wulingzi was still intimidated by him and betrayed Vulture. He watched his daughter being taken away and didn't dare to do anything. The Demon King Wentian was much stronger than Yang Dingtian and much more evil. Wulingzi's action of stopping the Demon King would undoubtedly anger the Demon King. He was simply courting death. When did he become so bold? Facing Wulingzi's attitude, the Demon King Wentian was also very surprised. His flame-like eyes stared at Wulingzi. Wulingzi's body knelt lower and lower. Finally, he was completely lying on the ground. He trembled and said, "Your Majesty Demon King, please grant my wish." After a long silence, the Demon King Wentian suddenly laughed and said, "Good, good, good. Wulingzi." Then he suddenly lowered his head and looked at Wulingzi and said, "You are very good, Wulingzi. Then I will grant your wish of missing your daughter. You may go." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Wulingzi kowtowed and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Shura Vulture bowed and said. Her voice was filled with the feeling of surviving a disaster. Then, Wulingzi and Vulture flew to their room dozens of miles away. This room just so happened to be the bridal chamber, where she and young Dingtian had consummated their marriage. It was here that Ling Jiao had turned into a real woman. The whole room was very luxurious. Vulture had always liked luxury. The father and daughter looked at each other quietly. For a moment, they did not know what to say. "I am sorry. During the time you were imprisoned, not only did I not visit you, I also did not plead for you," Shura Vulture said. Wulingzi shook his head. After a long time, he suddenly said, "I have lived for more than 200 years. For the first 20 years, I was arrogant and ignorant. For the next 20 years, I was proud and temperamental. For the next few decades, I was vicious and ruthless. Whether I was ignorant or vicious, in the end, it was a wonderful life." Wulingzi took a deep breath and said, "However, for the next 100 years, there is only one word to describe it. Decay." When Vulture heard this word, her delicate body suddenly trembled. Wulingzi said, "I have lived for more than 200 years, but I am more and more afraid of death. Although I am still alive, my heart has long rotted. I should have been in a coffin long ago. My entire body exudes an aura of decay. No wonder young Dingtian looks down on me and hates me." Suddenly, Vulture's heart felt stifled. She did not know what to say. Wulingzi said, "You have no idea how much I am afraid of death. Therefore, when young Dingtian threatened me, I surrendered and sold you to him." Vulture said, "He will not kill me in the end." Wulingzi said, "Because I betrayed him. My fear of the Demon King has reached an unparalleled level. This fear erupted the moment I saw His Majesty the Demon King. I really wanted to kneel on the ground with my entire soul to express my submission." Hearing this, Vulture's heart felt even more stifled. Wulingzi said, "Until I was imprisoned in the Skirich Imperial Capital's energy formation high up in the sky, heaven and earth did not respond. Looking around, it was all darkness. There was no vitality, no life. Do you know what I thought of?" Vulture shook its head. Wulingzi said, "I thought of hell, the hell after death. Here, everything is dark and there is no vitality. What is the difference between this and hell? When I was imprisoned, I thought of it. I have long rotted. I smell the smell of a coffin all over my body. What is the difference between me and death? If this is the smell of death, then what am I afraid of? Why am I so afraid?" Immediately, Vulture felt its eyes become a little dry, and it felt like crying. Wulingzi said, "Young Dingtian always mocked me for being afraid of death. I asked him in return, 'Are you not afraid of death?' He said that he was afraid too. I said, 'Since you are also afraid of death, what right do you have to mock me?' He said that he was afraid of death because he had not finished what he wanted to do. There were still many people who needed his protection, many people who needed his salvation. And I, Wulingzi, am afraid of death, just afraid of death." Vulture said in a trembling voice, "I don't want you to die. I want you to live." Wulingzi smiled bitterly, then said to Vulture, "Girl, protect yourself well. Really protect yourself well." Then, Wulingzi turned around and flew out. The next morning, Devil King Wentian sat on the throne of darkness, as he looked down at the densely packed crowd of over 2,000 people. Except for a very small number of people, everyone here was a Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, and Class 5 evil spirits. These 3,000 people were the middle force of the evil ways, the direct commanders of the Legion of Doom. As for the hierarchy of power, It was incomparably clear. Class 5 evil spirits were the lowest level commanders. On average, each of them commanded 10,000 Legion of Doom. Class 4 evil spirits were the second level commanders. On average, each of them commanded 5 Class 5 evil spirits and 50,000 Legion of Doom. Each Tier 3 dark spirit commanded 250,000 Armageddon Legions. Each Grade 2 dark spirit commanded 1.3 million Armageddon Legions. In other words, Lung Ao, Wu Dozi, Gudu Wu Huan, Yang Zheng, Qiu Ruhan, Shimen Ju, and the others were the highest commanders of the Legion of Doom. There were originally 5 Class 1 evil spirits, but Netherworld had perished together with the Class 1 evil spirits, so this branch had completely disappeared. Now there were only 4 people left with first-class evil spirits: Dongli Mudan and Li Ming. There was still a mysterious person. This mysterious person was wrapped in snow-white armor from head to toe. Even his face was wearing a silver mask. This was the first time this person had appeared in front of everyone. He commanded the experts of the Demon City's Merchant Palace, and was bestowed a Class 2 evil spirit. Each Class 1 evil spirit commanded an army of more than 5 million Legion of Doom. Above the 4 Class 1 evil spirits was the Shura Vulture. She was the first commander of the battlefield, and directly commanded the 4 Class 1 evil spirits. But the Vulture knew in its heart that it could not command anyone. These 4 Class 1 evil spirits would only obey the orders of the Devil Queen and the Demon King. Above the Shura Vulture was the supreme commander of this doomsday war, the Devil Queen. She was the ruler of the entire war, and could command any evil spirit. Moreover, the trump cards of this doomsday war, the Dark Colossal Dragon, Dark Evil Dragon, and Destructive Earth Dragon, were directly commanded by Dongli, Li Ming, and Mu Dan respectively. The Devil Queen bowed and said, "Your Majesty, may I ask where the first battle will end?" "Zhongjing," the Demon King Wentian said. "Occupy Zhongjing, kill 500 million people, then stop the war and negotiate with Yang Dingtian." "Yes, Your Majesty," the Devil Queen bowed and said. "Then let's go." The Demon King Wentian said, "Half a month. I will only give you half a month. Kill 500 million people, destroy all the Seafolk army, and occupy the entire Zhongjing." "Yes, Your Majesty," the Devil Queen bowed and said. "I am willing to make a military pledge." The Demon King Wentian smiled and said, "There is no need for a military pledge. This mission is completely effortless. This wasn't a war at all. It was merely a killing game. Half a month later, I want to see the Zhongjing Square built with hundreds of millions of heads, surpassing the height of the Zhongjing Main Hall." "Yes, Your Majesty." Everyone bowed and shouted. "Then go." The Demon King Wentian ordered. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly, thousands of dark spirits flew out of the Skirich imperial capital like meteors and entered their army. At this time, tens of millions of troops were lined up neatly in the dark void. The Devil Queen, who was in the lead, sat on a dazzling golden throne. The entire throne was 100 meters tall, and was pulled by 9 dark dragons. The Azura Spirit Vulture sat on an even smaller silver throne, and was pulled by 3 darkness vial dragons. Her silver throne was behind the Devil Queen. Behind Shura Vulture, Prince Li Ming, Young Master Dongli, Princess Mudan, and the Mysterious One were each riding a dark dragon. Behind the 4 of them, there were tens of millions of troops. This included 300 colossal darkness dragons, 1,000 earth destruction dragons, and 3,000 darkness vial dragons. The horn of destruction suddenly sounded in the Skirich imperial capital. "Let's go! Destroy the human countries!" The Devil Queen ordered. Tens of millions of troops rushed out like the tide of hell. Chapter 972. How many elite troops did the Council of Light send to the front line in the face of a war that was close to destruction, and whose outcome was already known? 1/3 of their military strength. Currently, the total number of frontline, second, and third frontline troops in the human countries was more than 80 million. And the frontline elite troops were more than 20 million. A total of 8 million had been deployed to the battlefield half a month ago. Of these 8 million, less than 1 million were in the world of ice and snow. 2 million troops were stationed in the World Society's King City. 2 million troops were stationed in the Northwest Continent's Qin City. The remaining 3 million were all in the Bedlam lands, surrounding Sky Demon City, so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Therefore, Sky Demon City, the North's World Society's King City, and the Northwest Qin City were the 3 frontline battlefields. As for Yang Dingtian's hometown, no army was stationed there just because he was the leader of the Tiando League. On the contrary, no matter if it was Cloud Sky City Castle or Great Cloud Sky City, there was almost no army. The entire Great Cloud Sky City became the rear of the frontline battlefield. All the warlocks, doctors, food, cannonballs, crystals, and other war materials were all deployed here. Once wounded soldiers appeared in the war, of course, if there were any wounded soldiers, they would all be transferred here first before retreating south. And the frontline troops in the south would enter Great Cloud Sky City one after another as substitutes on the battlefield. The entire Cloud Sky City was only garrisoned with a supporting army of 500,000. They would support wherever the 3 main battlefields were needed. Of course, if King City, the Northwest Qin City, and the Land of Chaos were all lost, then the frontline battlefield would directly shift to Great Cloud Sky City. And once Great Cloud Sky City fell, it would mean that the frontline battlefield was completely defeated, and the entire North would fall. According to the Council of Light's guess, the first battle would erupt in Sky Demon City, because the army would most likely charge into the human countries from Sky Demon City. Therefore, although the Council of Light only sent out 3 million troops to surround Sky Demon City, they mobilized an astronomical number of cannons, Phoenix-level missiles, and giant crystal crossbows, etc. Dongfang Minmi, as the second-in-command of the Council of Light, personally came to the battlefield of Sky Demon City as the first commander of the battlefield. Qin Wanqiu, as the first commander of the Qin City battlefield. Zhuo Qingqi and Song Xiao were the commander-in-chief and vice-commander-in-chief of the northern battlefield. Dongfang Minmi stood at the top of Beiping's city wall and looked at Sky Demon City, which was less than 100 miles away. Of course, this Beiping had nothing to do with China's Beiping in the last century. This city had been under construction for nearly 5 years. Ever since the Council of Light took over the fringe, they had been building this city. Beiping City was named by Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian wanted to restore peace and tranquility to the Land of Chaos. Since it was located in the north, he named it Beiping. Yang Dingtian had been wary of the Sky Demon City and the Demon City's merchant palace since a long time ago. Therefore, not only was this city the largest in the fringe, it was also a city used to guard against Sky City. Therefore, this was a gigantic military fortress. There were 3 walls that were dozens of meters tall. Each wall was more than 10 meters thick. The number of cannon battlements on the walls was astronomical. The northernmost wall, which was the closest to Sky Demon City, was more than 50 miles away. Every 30 meters there was a cannon battlements. There were more than 1,000 cannons lined up. The entire city wall, from top to bottom, had a total of 5 layers of cannon battlements. In other words, this mountain-like wall alone had more than 5,000 gigantic cannons. There were also countless gigantic crystal crossbows, which exceeded the number of cannons. Not only that, behind the wall, there were more than 1,000 gigantic Phoenix-grade missiles that contained X crystals. Each missile weighed more than a few tons. This was the terrifying productivity of the Council of Light. It could be said that if they were not facing the apocalyptic army of the Empire of Darkness, but the Legion of Doom in the past, just the military power of Beiping City alone was enough to stop tens of millions of Legion of Doom. But now they were facing a completely different army. It was an energy army forged by the ancient civilization. However, everyone in the Radiant Parliament's army was still proud of their military strength. On the city wall, Dongfang Minmi looked at Sky Demon City not far away. This was already a dead city. Beside him was the deputy commander of Beiping City's war zone, Qin Huayu. Dongfang Minmi sighed in his heart. Originally, the one standing beside him should have been Dongfang Bingling or Lung Ao. However, his daughter Dongfang Bingling had been poisoned by a first-class evil spirit, and had become the princess of the evil ways Mu Dan. As for Lung Ao, he had abandoned himself, and became a lackey of the evil ways. Qin Huayu, you should follow your father to the Qin city battlefield. That is also your home. Dongfang Minmi said. You and him together can be considered as father and son soldiers going into battle. Qin Huayu said. It is even more dangerous here. I also want to be the first to see Wentian's world-destroying army. Dongfang Minmi said. You will see it, and you will see it very soon. Qin Huayu said. Sect Master Dongfang, do you think Sect Master Yang will succeed? Yes. Dongfang Minmi said straightforwardly. When little Tian does something with all his strength, he will succeed. The only question is when he will succeed. We can only hope that before he succeeds, we will not die and the entire north will not fall. That's right, this was what everyone was thinking. No one wanted to use the Council of Light to obtain victory, because it was impossible. The only thing they wanted was to hold on, until Yang Dingtian arrived. In Dongfang Minmi's heart, how long could the Council of Light last? How long could the millions of soldiers behind Beiping City last? It was completely unknown. Reporting to Sect Master Dongfang, the Netherworld Sea has led an army to reinforce. Shimanlai walked up to the city wall and said. Dongfang Nimi turned his head to look. He immediately saw a group of several thousand people arrive at the city walls. Leading them was the number 1 elder of the Netherworld Sea, Annihilation. She was a woman with white hair and a youthful face, holding a black staff in her hand. Behind her were all the elders of the Netherworld Sea, close to 20 martial grandmasters, over 100 martial masters, a few hundred revered martial artists, and a few thousand martial ancestors. Among them was Elder Wu Yan, who doted on Yin Yan. It also included Tai Muli, who had cut off Song Zhao's leg, and was later heavily injured by Yang Dingtian. In short, all the experts of the Netherworld Sea who were martial ancestor realm and above had turned out in full force. The Council of Light had never seen Elder Annihilation before because she had always stayed in the Netherworld Sea and did not care about any external matters. At this moment, she had led the martial forces of the entire Netherworld Sea to Beiping City, to the front line of the battlefield. Under Dongfang Minmi's invitation, the few thousand experts of the Netherworld Sea all came to the top of the city wall. It was not that Dongfang Minmi was arrogant, but because he had to keep an eye on every movement of the Sky Demon City. After a while, all the experts of the Netherworld Sea came to the top of the city wall. Elder Annihilation bowed slightly and said, Under the orders of sect leader Wuxia, I have led all the martial forces of the Netherworld Sea to Beiping City to participate in the battle and listen to sect leader Dongfang's orders. Dongfang Minmi bowed and said, Thank you for your deep friendship, sect leader Wuxia. Thank you for your solidarity, Elder Annihilation. Basically, the first battle of the apocalypse would erupt on the Beiping City wall. On the city wall, there were already over 1,000 martial ancestors, a few hundred revered martial artists, a few dozen martial grandmasters, and 5 martial grandmasters. In addition, all the experts of the Netherworld Sea had turned out in full force. Therefore, there were already 20 to 30 martial grandmasters, over 100 martial masters, a few hundred revered martial artists, and a few thousand martial ancestors on the city wall. The martial forces here were supposed to be the essence of the human countries. They could not be sacrificed for nothing. However, this could be the first battlefield, or it could be the first battle. Even if it was a terrible sacrifice, they had to fight for the dignity of the human countries. A moment later, 4 figures flew over from afar. They were Bolu, Yaozi, Awan and Awu. These 4 people were all level 14 infinite martial grandmasters. The 4 of them came in front of Dongfang Minmi. Bolu bowed and said, Princess Yaoli ordered me to come to Beiping City and listen to sect leader Dongfang's orders. Princess Yaoli and sect leader Wuqiong are guarding the gate of the human countries and are unable to come. Please forgive us. Dongfang Minmi bowed in return and said, This old man appreciates your kindness. Immediately, There were 4 more top experts close to the half-saint realm on the Beiping city wall. Another hour passed. Suddenly, there was a tremor from behind. A black shadow flew over from the back of Beiping city. Dongfang Minmi turned his head to look. Immediately, he saw a peerlessly beautiful woman leading hundreds of people on devil-flood dragon beasts as fast as lightning. It was the queen of the mermaid empire, Violet's. A quarter of an hour later, Violet led all the masters of the merfolk to the top of the city wall. Dongfang Minmi stepped forward and bowed. Dongfang Minmi greets Her Majesty the Mermaid Queen. Violet said, although in the alliance agreement, my defense area is in the sea, but it's obvious that the Doomsday War will not break out on the sea at the beginning, but on land. This place should become the first battlefield. Because the Sea Race Army is commanded by the Mermaid Commander, I only brought 300 mermaid warriors above level 9 to listen to sect leader Dongfang's orders. Dongfang Minmi bowed deeply and said, Thank you, Your Majesty. This time, the mermaid race experts that Violet's brought could all completely transform into human form. Among them, there were more than 10 half-saint experts, and the remaining 200 were all infinite martial grandmasters. Instantly, there were already an astonishing few hundred infinite martial grandmasters, more than 10 half-saints, and 1 saint expert on the entire Beiping city wall. It could be said that almost all the essence of martial arts was on this city wall. Dongfang Minmi suddenly felt his blood boiling. At least this first battle still had to be fought. Using cannons, crystal crossbows, giant missiles, and thousands of martial arts experts to fight against the Doomsday Army. Rumble. Suddenly, the entire world seemed to have a sudden oppressive roar. Then, shocking lightning suddenly struck down from the clear sky. Immediately after, the blue sky for thousands of miles suddenly turned dark. The light of the 2 suns was completely enveloped. Darkness, complete darkness. It was supposed to be noon, and the sun was shining. However, the entire world suddenly darkened. It became darker and darker. In the end, it was completely like night. The 1,000 miles around the Sky Demon City had completely turned into a dark night. It's coming, Dongfang Minmi muttered to himself. Boom! The entire earth suddenly trembled violently. Then, the Sky Demon City not far away was suddenly torn apart. The entire earth was torn open with a huge crack of hundreds of miles. The Sky Demon City of hundreds of miles, like the end of hell, suddenly collapsed. Countless buildings and beautiful buildings fell into the abyss one after another. The entire Sky Demon City collapsed into a huge black hole. The once most prosperous city in the world had completely disappeared from this world. Then, countless Doomsday Army, like a tide, surged out of this huge abyss cave. Boom, 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 boom. The earth was trembling and tearing. The horn of death was constantly sounding. The Doomsday Barbarian army that was more than 5 meters tall was like an ant, like a nightmare, like a devil. They crazily rushed out, endless and innumerable. Not only the Doomsday Barbarian army, but there were also dark dragons as fast as lightning. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Like a sharp sword, they suddenly rushed into the sky. Whoa! In the abyss, there was a shocking roar. Every roar could be heard clearly even if they were separated by hundreds of miles. Then Dongfang Minmi and the others were shocked to see. Dark dragons that were more than tens of thousands of meters long flew out of the abyss, like huge mountains, flying into the sky and covering the entire sky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hundreds of incomparably huge dark dragons suddenly rushed into the sky. Accompanying them were thousands of lightning-fast dark dragons. Dongfang Minmi felt suffocated. These tens of thousands of meters long dark dragons already looked invincible. Even if hundreds of thousands of black vultures and thousands of demon vultures rushed up together, there would only be one outcome, and that was total annihilation. Countless Doomsday infantry and Doomsday cavalry were still rushing to the ground like a tide. Every Doomsday Barbarian army was as terrifying and disgusting as a nightmare, because they were real 3 heads and 6 arms. 3 heads, front, back, left and right, 6 arms, each holding a huge weapon. Every Doomsday Barbarian army was not wearing armor, but had barbs and armor directly on their bodies. Every one of them was extremely strong, and every one of them was invulnerable. As for the Doomsday cavalry, They were not humans riding on beasts at all. Instead, they were like centaurs, three-headed and six-armed barbarians, with the body and limbs of beasts. They were 6 meters tall, 20 meters long, and weighed tens of thousands of kilograms. When they ran, they were even faster than the human cavalry's ace demon dragon. A full half a day and a night had passed. It was a full 18 hours of darkness. The sky finally brightened up again. The Legion of Doom's invasion into the human countries had finally ended. The darkness in the sky dissipated, and the morning sun shone on the earth again. It was daytime in Beiping City. In front of them, the land that was hundreds of miles wide and thousands of miles long was still dark. Because 20 million Legion of Doom were spread out over tens of thousands of square kilometers of land. The golden throne of the Queen Devil Queen floated high in the sky. Chapter 973. The entire Sky Demon City spanned hundreds of miles. Yesterday, it had completely collapsed and turned into an abyss of demons. Then countless Legion of Doom surged out like a tide. After half a day and a night finally, all the Legion of Doom had surged out of the ground and arrived at the human countries. Then, the collapsed abyss of the entire Sky Demon City was filled up and turned into a flat land. At this moment, everyone in Dongfang Minmi finally saw the true appearance of the Legion of Doom. Then they were instantly suffocated. Dongfang Minmi had seen big scenes before. The Mermaid Queen was even more so. The Masters of the Council of Light and the powerhouses of the Netherworld Sea had all seen big scenes before. However, they had never seen such a huge scene before. The main force was the World Destruction Barbarian Army that had been modified by the Maori barbarians. Each of them had 3 heads and 6 arms and were 5 meters tall. As they advanced, their bodies grew armor and barbs, which were completely impenetrable. There were more than 15 million of these World Destruction Barbarian Army. There were also the World Destruction Barbarian Cavalry that had been modified by the Maori barbarians and demonic beasts. Each of them weighed more than 10,000 kilograms. They were like centaurs, with the upper body of a barbarian and the lower body of a demonic beast. When they galloped, they were as fast as lightning. They were 5 meters tall, more than 20 meters long, and weighed more than 10,000 kilograms. There were 5 million of these terrifying cavalry troops. The World Destruction Barbarian Army had more than that. There were also extremely terrifying destructive earth dragons that were tens of thousands of meters long and extremely shocking siege beasts. There were siege beasts that were tens of meters long, and their entire bodies were trebuchets. There were also terrifying giants that were taller than the city walls and wall-crashing unicorns that weighed hundreds of thousands of kilograms. In short, this was a complete collection of demons. This was an army that had never been seen before. This was an army that had truly surged out of hell. Fortunately, the thousands of people on the city walls were all martial artists at the martial ancestor realm and above. If an ordinary soldier were to see this scene, they might immediately break down and go crazy. At this moment, there were tens of thousands of cannoneers and crossbowmen inside the city walls. They didn't need to see the monsters outside. They only needed to fire after receiving orders. Anyway, they didn't need to aim at all. How big would the 20 million Legion of Doom be if they were spread out on the ground? The ground in front of Beijing City, which was 200 li wide and nearly 1,000 li long, was densely packed and dark. This was truly a place where even birds would find it difficult to cross. It was boundless. The surface area of the 20 million Legion of Doom was several times that of the entire peaceful North City. The originally magnificent and huge city seemed to have become fragile at this moment, as if it was going to be completely submerged by the tide of 20 million world annihilation barbarian soldiers. Of course, this 20 million Legion of Doom was not a trump card at all. The real trump card was the several hundred dark colossal dragons and several thousand dark vile dragons flying in the sky. However, at this moment, they were flying very high and had already turned into a mass of dark clouds. And this terrifying power, the Legion of Doom, which was enough to destroy the entire human kingdom many times over, was only a small part of the empire of darkness. Queen Devil Queen said to Shura Vulture beside her, "This is not a war at all. It's a game, understand?" Shura Vulture's heart trembled slightly, then he nodded and said, "Understood." Queen Devil Queen said, "Since it's a game, then play it well. Don't finish it all at once." "Yes," Shura Vulture responded casually, then looked at the city wall 100 li away, looking for Yang Dingtian's figure. "No need to look," Queen Devil Queen said. "Yang Dingtian is not here. He went to look for Naga Duga Shuang. The great Yang Dingtian also knows that this is a war that can't be won, so he has completely pinned his hopes on Naga. It turns out that Yang Dingtian also has a day when he has to rely on others." Hearing that Yang Dingtian was not here, Shura Vulture's heart suddenly relaxed. As long as Yang Dingtian was not here, no matter how many people she killed later, she was not afraid. She did not care about the life and death of the people in the world. Queen Devil Queen said, "You are the first commander of the battlefield, so the order to attack will be issued by you." Shura Vulture said, "We don't need to shout, we just attack directly?" Queen Devil Queen said, "Of course, because our purpose is only to kill people." Shura Vulture raised the command flag, waved it fiercely and shouted, "Attack!" Prince Li Ming raised the command flag and said, "Yang Zheng Shimenju Qiu Ruhan Lung Ao." The 4 people stepped out and knelt on one knee. Prince Li Ming said, "The 4 of you have a deep hatred for Yang Dingtian. This first battle will be fought by the 4 of you." Yes, the 4 of them rode on the dark dragon and came to the sky above their army. They suddenly ordered, "Attack, flatten Beijing city." Roar! 100-meter-tall rumbling beast roared toward the sky. The horn of attack was filled with blood and cruelty. It resounded for thousands of miles, causing the entire ground to tremble. Then in the army formation that spanned hundreds of miles, there were 4 huge square formations, dozens of medium-sized square formations, and hundreds of small square formations. A total of 5 million troops rushed toward Beijing city like a tide. Among the 5 million troops, dozens of wall-crashing behemoths, war behemoths, city-climbing behemoths, and war giants also rushed forward crazily. Although the world destruction barbarian army only relied on their 2 legs, they ran as fast as war horses or even faster. When millions of troops ran at the same time, the entire ground immediately trembled. In Beijing city, the elite army of the Council of Light heard the war cries of the world destruction barbarian army, the horns of the behemoths, and the tremors of millions of troops running. They could clearly feel that the entire city was trembling. The huge water tank in front of them shook the water up by a few inches. The weapons in their hands were also rumbling. Even the most elite army of the human countries could not help but feel fear in their hearts at this time. Their commander was also afraid. However, he rode on a war horse and shouted, "Don't be afraid. I can tell you that the Legion of Doom is more terrifying than you can imagine. However, in front of you, there are thousands of martial arts experts on the city wall. There are more than 5,000 giant cannons, more than 10,000 giant crystal crossbows, and more than thousands of giant missiles. Not only that, there are thousands of experts from the Netherworld Sea, thousands of experts from the Council of Light, and 300 top experts sent by the ancient Mermaid Empire. Each of them is more powerful than an infinite great grandmaster. With them blocking in front of us, what else do we have to be afraid of? And our great sect leader Yang Dingtian is cultivating a peerless cultivation technique that can instantly kill the Legion of Doom. Let me ask you, from the beginning until now, has sect leader Yang Dingtian ever disappointed us?" The officer shouted loudly. "No." The thousands of soldiers in the barracks shouted loudly. "Then that's it." The officer said, "Not only that, the only demigod in this world, Naga, is the wife of sect leader Yang Dingtian. He is also on our side. What else do we have to be afraid of?" That's right. Naga Shuang had been completely exposed at this time, and became a trump card to boost the morale of the Council of Light. The officer said, "Of course you and I may die. But so what? The thousands of experts on the city wall have to block in front of us and protect us because of their strength. And we are stronger than countless people, stronger than your parents, wives, and children. so we have to block in front of them. It's that simple, that's all. Yes, the thousands of soldiers shouted. The officer said, well then sit down and rest. Don't think about anything. When the order comes, charge directly. Death is nothing to be afraid of. Shout after me, die, die, die. Immediately, thousands of soldiers roared loudly. Die, die, die. This loud roar spread throughout the city. Immediately, the millions of soldiers of the Council of Light Army began to roar loudly. The orderly roar of tigers even suppressed the millions of running barbarian soldiers. Qin Huayu had completely calmed down. Although the 5 million Legion of Doom was enough to drown the entire city, he used a unique eyepiece to look at the army in front of him. At the same time, hundreds of warlocks on the city wall also used a measuring mirror to look at the charging Doomsday army. 5 square formations, 250,000 Doomsday Barbarian Cavalry, 130 miles away from Beiping City. Running speed, 19 miles per minute. First, second, third, and fourth units, prepare the Phoenix-level missiles. Immediately for units, a total of 200 giant missiles slowly rose within the city wall. Then, many warlocks began to input data and adjust the direction. Fire. An order was given. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 200 missiles flew toward the Doomsday Barbarian army like meteors. Each of the giant missiles weighed more than 3 tons. Each missile contained a terrifying amount of X crystals, a shocking amount of demon cores, other crystals, and high explosives. In short, such a missile could easily raise a huge castle to the ground. In terms of power, it had already surpassed an ordinary missile of the same weight on Earth. Hundreds of terrifying missiles whistled and flew toward the Doomsday Barbarian Cavalry at a speed of a few hundred meters per second. More than 200,000 Doomsday Barbarian Cavalry spread out across dozens of miles of land. Their running speed surpassed the Demon Dragon Cavalry of the Human Empire. They were completely fearless and did not care about the giant missiles flying toward them like lightning. Bang, 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 bang. Hundreds of Phoenix-level missiles, which weighed a few tons, directly smashed into the Doomsday Barbarian Cavalry's formation. In this kind of short-distance attack, the Phoenix-level missile's error was less than 1 kilometer. Of course, even if the accuracy was bad, they could still hit. Because hundreds of thousands of Doomsday Barbarian Cavalry spread out across hundreds of miles, they could easily hit. Hundreds of missiles all smashed into the tide-like army formation. Then, boom, 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 boom. The whole world seemed to be torn apart. There was an earth-shattering explosion. The light that burst out completely covered the light of the 2 suns. The ground within hundreds of miles was completely engulfed by flames. Even though they were separated by hundreds of miles, the people on the city wall could still feel the shock, and a strong hurricane blew past. Dongfang Minmi suddenly opened his eyes wide. Even the distant infernal queen-dead concubine stood up abruptly. Evil ways were not ignorant of the giant missiles of the Human Empire. However, because their Legion of Doom was extremely powerful, they did not take them seriously at all. Furthermore, every single member of the Armageddon Legion was clad in astonishing armor that was completely impenetrable. Therefore, could the giant missiles of the Human Empire tear apart the Legion of Doom? This had always been a question. Then this question would be answered soon. Boom, 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 boom. The earth-shattering explosions were still ongoing. The entire battlefield was completely shrouded in flames and thick smoke. It was completely impossible to see clearly. Dongfang Minmi immediately released a ghost bird and flew towards the army formation. Then, a vulture palace warlock observed the battlefield through the ghost bird's eyes. Boom, boom, boom. After the giant missiles exploded, the area within 1,000 meters was instantly engulfed by flames. Then, Dongfang Minmi saw it clearly in a crystal mirror. The Doomsday Barbarian Cavalry that was running was instantly torn into pieces. All the Doomsday Barbarian Cavalry in the center of the explosion, the terrifying giant beasts that were invulnerable, were instantly smashed into pieces. Dongfang Minmi and the others were instantly overjoyed. The Legion of Doom was not invincible. They could still be torn apart by the artillery of the Human Empire. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.